Chapter 958. A set of coordinates. Xing Hui didn't need to guess to know that the other side of the coordinates was where Lord Searing Blood's true body had escaped from the Void Heaven Ring. However, the fact that he hadn't attacked yet showed that he hadn't yet recovered his strength. Or perhaps, his escape technique had teleported him too far away, so far that even if he'd recovered his strength, he still wouldn't be able to teleport over in a short period of time. Can I destroy this body to stop the transmission of power? No. As Immortal Emperor Vastsi spoke, he glanced vaguely at the sky above his head. If you destroy this body, the runes carved into it will immediately dissipate and fuse into the Chaos Verse. By then, the runes will be strengthened by the energy of the Chaos Verse and will recover even faster. Even if you take it outside the Chaos Verse and destroy it, it won't be of any use. The runes will resonate with the Chaos Verse, and if you destroy the body, the runes will reform within the Chaos Verse. After saying that, he looked at Qing Su. His face was filled with fear. The owner of the power that's currently being transmitted, is that evil god from all those years ago, the ruler of this Chaos Verse, the Lord of Burning Blood? Qing Su did not hide anything. He nodded. I've been suppressing the Lord of Burning Blood in my Void Heaven Ring all these years. Originally, I thought that the Void Heaven Ring, which can even seal up the clones of the Lord of Time and Lord of Gods, would be enough to suppress the Lord of Burning Blood until his power ran out. However, I never thought that he would still be able to escape through his escape technique. The only fortunate thing is that he should have fled quite far away. It is a bit far. If these runes really are a teleportation formation, then they're 60% similar to the one that brought us here. In other words, Lord Searing Blood should be in the Lord of Chaos domain. It seems that this is another contingency plan he set up just in case. However, this one was set up during the Lord of Chaos domain, so he was teleported to the Lord of Chaos domain. It's a pity that we're not in the territory of the Master of Chaos right now. Otherwise, if we gave these runes to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, or the Master of Time, they would be able to track down the Master of Burning Blood through these runes and deal a fatal blow to this powerful evil god before he recovers. Immortal Emperor Vastsi was somewhat regretful. The more he understood about evil gods, the more terrifying they were. Take the Burning Blood Lord, for example. He had created the entire Chaos Verse, and the Chaos Verse he created had given birth to thousands of terrifying existences who were on the same level as almighty experts. What kind of mighty power was this? With his Dominator rank cultivation, he had to fight against a great existence that could easily nurture thousands of great ability masters. Just thinking about it made him feel despair. It was like a weak and sickly mortal who couldn't even fill his stomach trying to destroy the sun above his head that illuminated everyone and gave birth to billions of lives. I don't need the Lord of Chaos power. I still have a way to deal with him. As the saying goes, the whip is too far away to reach. He's far away in the Lord of Chaos domain. By the time he gets involved in this Chaos Verse, I'll have solved all the problems. Xing Hui sneered. What are you going to do? Xing Hui raised his head slightly and looked at the blue sky and white clouds above this plain. His expression was calm but firm. Let's not worry about that for now. We'll talk about it after we occupy this Chaos Verse. Even if I can't control it in the end, I can push it toward the Lord of Time or Lord of Gods. With the acceleration of chaos energy, it'll be like a meteor crashing into the Lord of Gods or Lord of Time. Immortal Emperor Vastsi's heart trembled when he heard Xing Hui's words. Although this evil god was slightly weaker than the Lord of Chaos, Lord of Time, and Lord of Gods, he was a chaos creature. The size of his Chaos Verse wasn't the least bit inferior to the Lord of Time or Lord of Gods. In fact, his Chaos Verse might even be stronger. Even if the Lord of Gods and Lord of Time were to take a direct hit, they'd definitely suffer heavy losses. As for why he didn't push the Chaos Verse into the Lord of Chaos, the main reason was that it wouldn't be very effective. How are you going to occupy this Chaos Verse? Moreover, the operation of a Chaos Verse places an enormous burden on one's will. If you're not careful, your will be crushed by the entire Chaos Verse. Even if you aren't crushed by it, if your will can't control it, the entire chaos verse will collapse due to the imbalance in its operation. I know. I don't plan on doing this before I become a true chaos creature. Xing Hui chuckled. I may not be able to maintain the normal operation of the chaos verse, but doesn't the will of the universe govern the operation of the chaos verse? Just leave it to it. Leave it to it. Immortal Emperor Vast Sea was taken aback. Xing Hui didn't explain any further. Soon, he left the Dominion and headed for the Supreme Celestial World. However, while he was heading for the Chaos Void, he seeped his divine consciousness into Lord of Burning Blood's body. At the same time, the creation laws circulated once again. His psyche fluctuations and vital aura all underwent a series of changes. Under these changes, his consciousness began to slowly seep into the body. Bit by bit, he gradually gained control of the body. He was refining it. He was refining Lord of Burning Blood's corpse into an avatar. The entire process wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. It lasted about 100 years. And at this moment, Elder Eclipse and the others were fully prepared for the ritual of the will of the universe. Xing Hui didn't say anything to the many legendary experts under Lord of Scarlet Hell as he directly ordered the ritual to begin. As the ritual proceeded, the will of the universe began to gradually boil. The supreme celestial world and even the voids of all the planes emitted a faint pressure. Under this pressure, even the legendary experts who gradually obtained strength corresponding to their realm felt reverence. They looked at the mighty consciousness above their heads and sighed from the bottom of their hearts. Whether I succeed or not depends on this moment. Xing Hui sensed the pressure of the will of the universe gradually emanating from above his head. He swept his gaze towards the body of Lord of Burning Blood that he had refined into an avatar in the Void Heaven Ring and took a deep breath. The next moment, an avatar that was identical to Lord of Burning Blood seemed to have a life of its own as it strode out of the Void Heaven Ring. The moment this avatar broke free from the Void Heaven Ring's suppression, the runes in its body shone at the same time as though it wanted to communicate with the will of the universe and completely borrow its power to form an ultra-long-distance teleportation array. From there, it would communicate with Lord of Burning Blood on the other side of the array and completely teleport him to this Chaos Verse so that he could borrow the Chaos Verse power to instantly climb to the peak and regain the throne of the heretic gods. However, before these runes could manifest, Xing Hui had already mobilized the power of his virtual immortal Dao civilization to conceal these runes at the same time as though he was deceiving them. This power wasn't from Lord of Burning Blood's Chaos Verse, but from another Chaos life form. Under such circumstances, the runes quickly quieted down. Furthermore, Xing Hui used the power of the virtual immortal Dao civilization to envelop and shrink them into a ball, suppressing them in a corner. After doing all this, Xing Hui's avatar's essence, energy, and spirit continued to seethe, rapidly penetrating the heavens and earth and intertwining with the will of the universe that had been projected from the sacrificial offering. The two consciousnesses collided in the void, creating bursts of sparks. However, because the two consciousnesses were of the same origin, they quickly fused together. Very good. Xing Hui relaxed slightly. It seemed that his strategy of deceiving the will of the universe by pretending to be Lord of Burning Blood had succeeded. As Xing Hui's consciousness fused with the will of the universe, he immediately felt his consciousness being rapidly diluted, neutralized, and diffused. Countless thoughts and consciousnesses instantly covered all the planes, living beings, mountains, rivers, and vital energy in the Chaos Verse. At this moment, the entire Chaos Verse was within the grasp of his consciousness. However, because his consciousness was so insignificant compared to the entire Chaos Verse, it was impossible for him to grasp every detail of the Chaos Verse in an instant. As a result, his previously clear consciousness had no choice but to blur many of the images. It was like a satellite observing a star from space. If it wanted to see every flower and tree clearly, it wouldn't be able to see the full picture of the star. If it wanted to see the entire star, it wouldn't be able to see every flower and tree. This was the limit of one's vision. Now that Xing Hui's consciousness couldn't take charge of the overall situation, it was constantly being raised. Enveloped by the will of the universe, his thoughts gradually became blurry. It was like a drop of ink falling into a pond. Although it could be dyed pitch black the moment it entered the pond, as time passed, it would sooner or later be completely assimilated by the water in the pond and become a part of the many water droplets in the pond. When this change was projected onto Tsing Hui, it would cause him to be assimilated and devoured by the will of the universe. Hum. At the critical moment, Tsing Hui's mind jolted. He quickly struggled out of the state of having a godlike view, and at the same time retracted his mental strength. But even so, when he completely broke free from that state, he still felt that his mental strength had been depleted to more than 80%, which was close to the critical point. Supervising an entire chaos verse. Sure enough, it isn't something that ordinary life forms can do. Judging from this, I can also tell how big the gap is between a true chaos life form and a life form at the level of a powerful being. Tsing Hui's expression was solemn. But fortunately, he had already injected the consciousness of the incarnation of the Lord of Burning Blood into the will of the universe. In other words, the will of the universe, which originally operated on instinct, was now branded with his mark. As long as his consciousness didn't destroy the entire chaos verse or trigger a strong backlash from the will of the universe would obey his orders. It's time to clean up the sacrificial blood shrine, then use the will of the universe to help me find all the precious things in this chaos verse. Chapter 959. Summon everyone to gather here. Tsing Hui, who was in the Grey Tower, gave the order. Immediately, many legendary experts under the Lord of Scarlet Hell's bloodline rushed over in less than a year and gathered in the Grey Tower. However, when Tsing Hui scanned the number of legendary experts who had come to the Grey Tower, he realized that the number was much lower than he had imagined. His gaze landed on Elder Eclipse, who had been in contact with him for a long time and had a high status and pinnacle legendary level combat strength. The number of legendary experts under the Scarlet Hell progenitor's bloodline should be more than this, right? It seems that there are less than 150 legendary powerhouses in front of me right now. I remember that there were nearly 400 legendary powerhouses when the Eternal Shrine was destroyed. Elder Eclipse looked at Tsing Hui with a complicated expression when he heard his question, but he still said, "Recently, our Scarlet Hell bloodline and the Sacrificial Blood Shrine have spread a piece of news. As you have been busy with something in seclusion, we did not report this news to you." "Oh. What news?" "This news claims that you might not have awakened the bloodline of the Scarlet Hell progenitor. Instead, you are a powerful life form from another dimension. Because of your powerful life essence, you have disguised yourself as the Scarlet Hell progenitor's bloodline awakening, deceiving all of us. Strictly speaking, you should be an outsider, an enemy of everyone." Elder Eclipse spoke slowly. As he spoke, he constantly sized up Tsing Hui, as though waiting for his response. In fact, he was not the only one. The other legendary experts who had come were the same. "Oh." Tsing Hui responded indifferently. Under the gazes of these legendary experts, his expression did not change much. "Regarding this, shouldn't you have guessed it long ago?" "When was it?" "When I returned from outside the chaotic universe, or when I pushed the Eternal Shrine into the chaotic void. However, although you guessed it, you chose to remain ignorant. Wasn't your goal to use my power to pave the way for the Lord of Scarlet Hell's bloodline? Now that the greatest enemy of the Lord of Scarlet Hell's lineage, the Eternal Shrine, has been taken care of under my leadership, can you openly question me about this?" When Elder Eclipse heard Tsing Hui's undisguised words, his expression changed slightly. There was a commotion among the other legendary powerhouses as well, but it only lasted for a moment before it died down. Clearly, as Tsing Hui had said, they had long suspected Tsing Hui's identity. However, they needed the help of Tsing Hui to fight against the Eternal Shrine and get the Lord of Scarlet Hell out of their current predicament. Even though they had doubts about Tsing Hui's identity, they still pretended not to know and followed Tsing Hui's orders to overthrow the Eternal Shrine's rule. "What about now?" "You're bringing this up now because you think you can't use my power anymore. Don't forget, if the Lord of Scarlet Hell's bloodline wants to completely rule this chaotic universe, there's still the Shrine of Scarlet Blood as your enemy." Elder Eclipse looked at Xing Hui and sighed. The other legendary powerhouses of the Scarlet Hell progenitor's bloodline have actually secretly reached a consensus to divide this chaotic universe equally. Equally? Yes, although we can still defeat the Shrine of Scarlet Blood with your power, when the time comes, there won't be many legendary powerhouses left in our bloodline. The final outcome will only be a lose-lose situation. If an otherworldly guest like an E intervenes in the situation of our chaotic universe, even the combined forces of the entire chaotic universe might not be able to resist. It's because of this that we chose to rule this chaotic universe together. On one hand, we can reduce our losses, and on the other hand, we can preserve our strength so that when the chaotic universe encounters a great enemy in the future, we won't lack the strength to expel them. Is that so? Xing Hui's expression remained unchanged. Inwardly, however, he sneered. Otherworldly guests like him were completely coincidental. In the vast void of chaos, only true chaos lifeforms or fortune lifeforms were capable of crossing from one chaotic universe to another. Even the most supreme of experts who had fortune artifacts protecting them were unable to travel between chaotic universes. In other words, if a faction really did come to attack their chaotic universe, there was only one explanation: a powerful fortune lifeform or chaos lifeform was far away from their chaotic universe, not far away. And once the lifeforms of creation or chaos arrived, what use would it be even if they had 10 times the number of legendary champions on their side, let alone trying their best to preserve their vitality? In the face of a fortune lifeform, even the most powerful legendary powerhouses were nothing more than ants. Then what about you? You actually responded to my summons and came to the gloomy tower. What are your thoughts? Xing Hui asked. Elder Eclipse looked at Xing Hui, as though he had come to a decision. Although in the short term, it is most reasonable for us to choose to share half of the chaos with the Blood Shrine like the other legends, but, even though the master of this chaos verse, Lord Searing Blood, is suspected to have perished while attacking that unknown chaos verse, and there has been no news of him for a very long time, no one can guarantee that Lord Searing Blood won't return one day. And once Lord Searing Blood returns, all the rebels who participated in the attack on the Eternal Temple will definitely face his wrath. When that happens, only death will await all of us, and only by relying on you, Lord Ani, will we have any hope of survival. Oh. Xing Hui looked at Elder Eclipse. Is this what you truly think? You have to know that, as these legendary powerhouses gain strength that matches their realms, I won't be much stronger than the original Supreme Legends. Do you trust me that much? Elder Eclipse exchanged looks with Elder Ingzhen, Xuechuan, and company. He said with a smile, we originate from the Crimson Hell primogenitor's lineage. Although we didn't inherit much strength, our horizons and knowledge are still better than ordinary people. According to what we know, traveling through the chaos void from one chaos verse to another is an extremely difficult task for any cultivator who isn't a fortune life form or a chaos life form. Lord An-E is able to do what most top cultivators can't. I believe that the means you possess are definitely not as simple as what we see now. Therefore, we believe that Lord An-E can protect us and lead us. With that said, the Pinnacle Legends looked at Xing Hui with sparkling eyes, as though they were waiting for his answer. Is that so? Xing Hui's expression was indifferent. Since I have hidden means that no one knows of, allowing me to move freely without you, why should I protect you? Not only did his words not incur their disgust, they even rejoiced over their choice. We understand. Without Crimson Hell Primogenitor's connection, Lord An-E indeed has no reason to help or protect us. However, according to our understanding over the years, Lord An-E seems to be rather interested in the special items left behind by the primogenitor. And these special items, apart from the crystal ball-like treasure, there's another item. As he spoke, Elder Eclipse once again presented an item that resembled an oil lamp to him. This is, upon sensing the chaos aura from the oil lamp, one that was even more exquisite and profound than the chaos aura. Xing Hui immediately stood up. As for Elder Eclipse, he tactfully went forward and handed the item to Xing Hui. Xing Hui held the magical lamp in his hand and studied it slightly. However, he was unable to see through its profundity in a short period of time. However, with Elder Eclipse and company waiting in anticipation for his response, it wasn't appropriate for him to begin studying it. Instead, he put away the lamp and said, "Very good. I'm very satisfied with this item. Apart from this strange item, is there anything else?" Of course. However, compared to this item and the treasure from before, those items are slightly inferior. I need all of them. Yes, I'll get someone to bring all of them over. Very good. Xing Hui nodded. At the same time, he said to Elder Eclipse with deep meaning, "I'll be accepting the items you have delivered. As for your attitude, I'm very satisfied. You will feel that your choice is wise and fortunate." Upon hearing that Xing Hui seemed to have left behind a powerful trump card, Elder Eclipse and company heaved a sigh of relief. They hurriedly said, "It's our honor to be able to help Lord Yi." "All right, gather your forces and prepare to take over the Supreme Divinity," said Yi Futian. "Receive the Supreme Divine World?" Elder Eclipse was slightly taken aback as he failed to react. "Exactly what I said. I plan on bestowing the Supreme Divine World to you as a reward for contributing these strange items to me." This, Elder Eclipse hesitated when he heard Qing Su's words. Only then did he say, "Although we currently occupy around a tenth of the territory of the Supreme God World, 30% of the remaining territory has been taken over by the legends who have betrayed Lord Yi. The other 60% has ended up in the hands of the remaining organizations like the Sacrificial Blood Divine Hall and the Eternal Divine Hall. Even if we use the Lord's name to order them to retreat and hand over their territory to us, they might not be willing. Since I'm getting you to receive those territories, I naturally have a way to make them submit. All you need to do is make some preparations and send someone to receive them when the time comes." Xing Hui said nonchalantly before turning around and heading for the upper levels of the Grey Tower. Elder Eclipse was about to ask something when Elder Ingjun reached out his hand to stop him. He shook his head and said, "Let's withdraw for now. Gather our forces and prepare to receive those territories. After that, all we need to do is wait for the situation to change." Chapter 960. A conscious will of the universe and an unconscious will of the universe are two completely different concepts. Xing Hui sat on the top floor of the Dark Tower, his powerful consciousness communicating directly with the will of the universe in the 9 heavens. Borrowing the will of the universe's control over the chaotic universe, his gaze immediately fell upon the Sacrificial Blood Shrine. The descent of the will of the universe caused the Sacrificial Blood Shrine, who were doing their best to collect and sort out the various resources of the Paramount Divine World, to panic slightly. Among them, the Sacrificial Blood Shrine Lord Roman was the first to raise his head, solemnly gazing at the void above the Paramount Divine World that contained an unparalleled pressure. Hum hum. Not long after his gaze fell upon the void above his head, a stream of light abruptly descended from the 9 heavens with incredible speed. Even Roman, a top expert who possessed the strength of a legend, could not see the trajectory of the light clearly. By the time the light took shape, a figure had already condensed beneath it. Roman's expression changed slightly when he saw the figure that had condensed into form. He immediately recognized the identity of the person in front of him. "An E? You can call me an E, or call me another identity, one that you've already guessed. A visitor from another world, Xing Hui." "A visitor from another world?" "That's true, but it's a pity that it's an unwelcome guest." Roman snorted coldly. He could already tell that the person in front of him was not Xing Hui's true body, but only an avatar. According to his understanding, once they grasped the strength of their realm, 3 supreme legends should be enough to keep him occupied. In other words, in the Sacrificial Blood Shrine headquarters, he wouldn't be afraid even if Xing Hui's true body came, let alone an avatar. The only thing that made him a little bewildered was, how did you cause the will of the universe to boil? You don't need to know that. Xing Hui's avatar, formed from his consciousness, looked at the Sacrificial Blood Shrine Lord in front of him. "I'm here to tell you that the Paramount Divine World belongs to me from now on. All legends of the Sacrificial Blood Shrine will either submit to me, or I'll banish you to the chaotic void so that you can never set foot in this chaotic universe again." Shameless boasting. Before Roman could say anything, some of the legendary guards who had heard the commotion shouted, "You only managed to break free from the shackles of the will of the universe by luck. That's why you're 100 times stronger than a legendary and have the combat power of a peak holy lord. But now, the shackles of the will of the universe have been completely broken by us. All of us have the power that corresponds to our realms. It's just wishful thinking for you to fight 100 or even 100 people like before. If you come with your real body, do you believe that we'll make it so that you won't be able to return? That's right. Things are different now. If you think you can defeat our sacrificial blood divine temple like you did to the eternal divine temple, you are gravely mistaken. Is it? The fact that you're able to say that you're going to drive us out shows that you're extremely confident in yourself. However, if you're so confident in your own strength, why did you send a clone here? Wouldn't it be more intimidating if you came with your real body? Xing Hui glanced at the guards and some of the higher-ups of the sacrificial blood divine temple before his gaze fell on Roman, the temple master of the sacrificial blood divine temple, who had tacitly agreed to this matter. Is this the attitude of the sacrificial blood divine temple? Back then, when the eternal divine temple dominated the world, the sacrificial blood divine temple submitted to them. No one can make the sacrificial blood divine temple kowtow to them again. Roman said with certainty, his tone carrying a powerful aura. That's right. From now on, no one can make us submit. It's not like 100 years ago. The sacrificial blood divine temple is not necessarily afraid of you. You want us to submit to you with just a clone. Don't you think that your actions and words are laughable? The other legendary experts of the sacrificial blood divine temple shouted. Then, I'll take it as your refusal. Since you've rejected my good intentions, on behalf of the will of the universe, I'll deprive you of your right to live in this chaotic universe. You'll be exiled in the chaotic void until you're completely eroded by the chaotic void. That will be your only home. Xing Hui said indifferently, then his gaze fell on the members of the sacrificial blood divine temple who were shouting the most fiercely. As he focused his gaze on the members of the sacrificial blood shrine, the will of the universe above the God world, which maintained the normal operation of the chaos verse, suddenly came crashing down. Streaks of light shot out from the will of the universe, sweeping up the members of the sacrificial blood shrine. Moments later, the laws of the universe, and even the universal barriers formed from countless laws, parted and parted. The members of the sacrificial blood shrine were swept up and thrown into a vortex that led outside the chaos verse. Such a violent and sudden change frightened the members of the sacrificial blood divine temple. They leapt out of the way and looked in horror at the whirlpool passage that had been blasted open by the will of the universe. This is... What's going on? The will of the universe? The will of the universe used the power of the universe to expel them outside the chaotic universe? What's going on? Why is the will of the universe obeying the orders of this person called Xing Hui? Roman, the temple master of the sacrificial blood divine temple, who had been speaking so confidently just a second ago, was so scared that his face turned pale. He quickly put some distance between himself and the whirlpool passage while staring at Xing Hui in disbelief. You're a visitor from another world. How did you gain the recognition of the will of the universe? Borrowing the power of the will of the universe for your own use? Could it be that you've become a child of the universe? An outsider has become a child of the universe? A child of the universe? I think you've made a mistake. Xing Hui looked at the temple master of the sacrificial blood divine temple with a faint smile. At best, a child of the universe can only borrow the power of the universe, or a portion of the power of the will of the universe. But now, the will of the universe is under my command and can only act according to my will. As he spoke, his gaze once again turned to the other legends of the sacrificial blood divine temple and coldly spat out two words, expel. Rumble. Violent tremors once again erupted from the sacrificial blood divine temple and huge whirlpool passages formed on the bodies of the legends. They seemed to be forced by the power of the entire universe and squeezed into the whirlpool passages. They screamed unwillingly and disappeared into the whirlpool passages. Needless to say, at the end of the whirlpool passages was the boundless chaotic void. Although these legends had slightly recovered their strength over the years and vaguely possessed a cultivation base that corresponded to their realm, once the will of the universe prohibited them from entering the chaotic universe, their bodies would be completely eroded by the chaotic energy for decades to centuries. In the end, they would be reduced to ashes and nothing would be left of them. In other words, once they were expelled from the chaotic universe, there was only one fate awaiting them, death. Stop! Stop! Roman, the temple master of the sacrificial blood divine temple, watched as the legends of the sacrificial blood divine temple were thrown into the whirlpool passage one after another and eventually transported into the chaotic void. In just a few moments, they had already lost more than 30 people, nearly 1/10 of them. He suddenly looked terrified. I acknowledge your strength. I believe that you have the power to command the will of the universe. Stop! This is not the attitude of someone who is begging for mercy. Xing Hui said indifferently. Even after eliminating the legends around Roman, he still seemed unsatisfied. He soared into the sky and hovered directly above the sacrificial blood divine temple. His powerful divine sense spread out and instantly locked onto the nearly 100 legends who were guarding the headquarters of the sacrificial blood divine temple. Then, an even more vast and terrifying will of the universe descended from the sky. A powerful oppressive force surged and covered the world. For a moment, even those legends felt like they were being suppressed by the will of the universe and could not move. No, please stop. The sacrificial blood divine temple is willing to submit to you. The sacrificial blood divine temple is willing to submit to you. Roman sensed Xing Hui's divine sense spreading out and the terrifying pressure that was so great that it made him feel suffocated. He immediately trembled and quickly lowered his head. The will of the universe. That was the powerful will of the universe. Even when Xing Hui was at his peak, he was almost neutralized, smelted, and devoured by the will of the universe when he came into contact with it, let alone the legends of the sacrificial blood divine temple, whose strongest was only equivalent to an ultimate master. None of them could resist the power of the will of the universe. There was no difference between 30 legends and 300 legends in front of the great will of the universe. Under such circumstances, if Roman dared to continue resisting Xing Hui, the only outcome would be the annihilation of the entire sacrificial blood divine temple. You're surrendering just like that? Didn't you just say that from now on, no one can make the sacrificial blood divine temple bow and bend the knee? Xing Hui sneered. Roman's face was very unsightly, but in the face of the invincible will of the universe, he forced himself to suppress the grievances in his heart and quickly lowered his head. You are a great being who can command the will of the universe. Even the will of the universe has been tamed by you and has become a sharp sword in your hand. In the face of such a great being like you, it is our honor to submit to you and serve you. Is that so? Xing Hui said indifferently, but the terrifying pressure that shrouded the entire sacrificial blood divine temple gradually dissipated. Soon, I'll send people to take over the sacrificial blood god temple. Henceforth, no one from the sacrificial blood god temple is allowed to enter the god world without permission. Otherwise, you'll suffer the same fate as them. You'll be expelled from the chaos verse and forced to join the primal chaos vital energy. Yes. Roman lowered his head. No matter how unwilling he was, in the face of the oppression of the will of the universe, he could only crush all his grievances into dust and swallow them. Chapter 961. After a while, Roman adjusted his state of mind and seemed to have accepted his fate. Then, he cautiously asked, My lord. You see, our sacrificial blood temple has already submitted to you. Those people just now are equivalent to your people. Can you let them return? They offended me, so they should pay the price for their words and actions. You want them to return. Remember your status. You have no right to plead for them in front of me. Xing Hui wanted to make an example out of them, so how could he give up halfway? Yes. I have overstepped my boundaries. If sacrificial blood temple doesn't listen to my orders, then there's no need for it to exist. Don't think too highly of you so-called legends. Now that I'm in control of the entire chaotic universe, it won't take much time to nurture dozens or hundreds of legends. Tsing Hui's voice sounded again, and it made Roman's heart tremble. With the will of the universe, as long as the master of this chaotic universe, Burning Blood Master, didn't return, Tsing Hui was indeed the master of the universe. It wasn't too difficult for a master of the universe to gather the power of the entire chaotic universe to nurture dozens or hundreds of legends. Under such circumstances, the submission of hundreds of legends from Sacrificial Blood Temple, was it really important? Thinking of this, Roman immediately put away all his thoughts and hid them deep in his heart. He didn't dare to reveal any of them. From now on, Sacrificial Blood Temple will obey your orders. We won't disobey you in the slightest. Very good. Tsing Hui nodded in satisfaction at Roman's change in attitude, then his clone dissipated and left. Lord Tsing Hui, when Tsing Hui retracted his clone and shot it in the direction of the Master of Red Hell, Elder Eclipse had already rushed to Tsing Hui's tower. Sir, did you sense it? The will of the universe is boiling. I know. Qing Su continued Elder Eclipse's words, there's no need to make a fuss. Let's go to the Sacrificial Blood Divine Hall now. I believe the people of the Sacrificial Blood Divine Hall will wisely hand over all their territory to you. Let's go to Sacrificial Blood Temple now. When Elder Eclipse heard Tsing Hui's words, he thought of the will of the universe that penetrated the world and suddenly understood something. He couldn't help but widen his eyes. Sir, that will of the universe, could it be, you guessed right. Qing Su nodded slightly, the reason why I had you go to such great lengths to prepare a large-scale ritual was to draw out the will of the universe and tame it for my own use. However, it seems like it's working out quite well. Taming the will of the universe. Elder Eclipse's heart skipped a beat. The will of the universe was a mighty god burn blood. Even though it wasn't the true Lord of Burning Blood and was only a manifestation of a part of the Lord of Burning Blood's subconscious, it still had at least 1/10 of the Lord of Burning Blood's power. And Lord God his like was equivalent to a 5th firmament chaos heretic god. Even if he only had 1/10 of his strength, it was still enough to crush any cultivator that wasn't even a chaos life form or creation life form. Ignoring the fact that the Chaos Verse was its home ground, even outside the Chaos Verse, the power the will of the universe could draw from the Chaos Verse was enough to easily crush thousands of legends. And now, Tsing Hui had managed to tame such a terrifying force, it was simply, Elder Eclipse felt his breathing stagnate at that moment. There were thousands of words he wanted to say, but ultimately, all he could do was swallow silently, phew. After a while, Elder Eclipse panted heavily as he recovered from the shock brought about by the news. He looked at Tsing Hui with reverence. His gaze was as though he was looking at a mighty god. He originally believed that by choosing not to betray him and remaining by his side, he would definitely be valued by him. He might even become an indispensable force for him, but now, he realized, choosing to continue relying on Tsing Hui and standing on the same side as him was definitely the best choice he had ever made in his life. Less than 150 legendary experts. This force was nothing to Tsing Hui who had tamed the will of the universe. Boom! While Elder Eclipse was reeling in shock, the mighty will of the universe descended once again. And this time, its target was the gathering spot of the other legendary experts under the Lord of Scarlet Hell's lineage. I believe that the traitors of your Scarlet Hell lineage would not dare go against my will. Therefore, when you lead people to take over the territory of the Sacrificial Blood Temple, send a number of people to take over the territory of the traitors. It's just taking over territory. There's no need for too many people. Tsing Hui's voice sounded. Elder Eclipse quickly adjusted his position and lowered his head as though he was listening to an imperial edict. He said respectfully, Your Excellency, don't worry. With Your Excellency clearing the way for us with the mighty will of the universe, the entire Supreme Celestial World will soon obey Your Excellency's orders. Furthermore, it won't be just the Supreme Celestial World. I believe that the entire Chaos Verse will follow Your Excellency's will in the future. Tsing Hui nodded. Go on. Elder Eclipse bowed again and took his leave. Time flowed. The traders under the Lord of Scarlet Hell and the Sacrificial Blood Temple members were subdued by Eclipse and company. The entire Supreme Celestial World came under Tsing Hui's control. At the same time, Eclipse and company used Tsing Hui's might to infiltrate the various mortal planes. Although the efficiency of their infiltration was inferior to the Eternal Temple due to the lack of manpower, it was only a matter of time before they completely dominated the Chaos Verse without any opponents. 100 years passed in a flash. Over the past 100 years, Tsing Hui had gathered all the resources that were worth collecting. If these resources were gathered together, it would be enough to nurture more than 100 legendary experts. In other words, more than 100 existences at the great divine powers level. And this was under the assumption that these treasures were convenient to use and carry around. If one were to include the holy lands and grotto heavens that were less efficient and inconvenient to take away, the rate of gathering resources would easily increase by more than 10 times. Over the past 100 years, Tsing Hui had gathered many mystical items. Most of these mystical items were undying materials that were extremely important to creation and chaos lifeforms. As the headquarters of the Lord of Burning Blood, there was an extremely large amount of undying materials. If Tsing Hui were to become a true chaos lifeform after obtaining these undying materials, his wealth would easily exceed that of ordinary creation and chaos lifeforms at the 4th level of the chaos realm. He wouldn't even be inferior to ordinary chaos lifeforms at the 5th level of the chaos realm. Other than that, he had also obtained the complete cultivation of the chaos incantation and understood the greatness of the 4th and 5th level of the chaos realm, as well as the Master of Chaos, Master of Time and Master of Gods. If the creation and chaos lifeforms at the 4th level of the chaos realm were unparalleled in terms of their material and energy foundation, then the chaos lifeforms at the 5th level of the chaos realm had already achieved undying to a certain extent. They couldn't be killed or destroyed by any conventional attacks because all attacks could be absorbed, digested, and refined by their undying characteristics. The only way to kill them was to have enough undying materials. When a chaos life form at the 5th level of the chaos realm was hit by enough undying materials, it would experience symptoms similar to a human's indigestion until death. From this point, Tsing Hui could deduce that the difference between the 4th and 5th level of the chaos realm was only the stubbornness of life force. In terms of strength, there wasn't a significant leap or growth. A chaos realm life form at the 4th level of the chaos realm with a huge amount of undying materials would have a way to kill a chaos realm life form at the 5th level of the chaos realm. Compared to the Chaos Realm lifeforms at the 5th level of the Chaos Realm who could only achieve undying, the Chaos Realm lifeforms at the 6th level of the Chaos Realm had already started to grasp the power of spacetime. Even though their grasp of the power of spacetime was weak, they could borrow the power of undying materials to deal fatal blows to the Chaos Realm lifeforms at the 4th and 5th level of the Chaos Realm. If a Chaos Realm lifeform at the 4th level of the Chaos Realm fought against a Chaos Realm lifeform at the 3rd level of the Chaos Realm, then a Chaos Realm lifeform at the 5th level of the Chaos Realm lifeform at the 6th level of the Chaos Realm would have to fight 10 to 1 to have a chance of winning. Moreover, many Chaos Realm lifeforms and creation lifeforms at the 5th level of the Chaos Realm would have to pay the price of eternal death. This was also the reason why the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods and Master of Time had to work together to defend the immortal Tao civilization world despite being powerful. There were 30 to 40 evil gods roaming the periphery of the immortal Tao civilization world. Even though they were only at the 4th level of the Chaos Realm, they were enough to trouble the Master of Chaos, Master of Gods and Master of Time individually. Moreover, there were Chaos Realm lifeforms at the 5th level of the Chaos Realm like the Burning Blood Master. I've obtained a lot of undying materials from the Burning Blood Master. Once I become a Chaos lifeform, even Chaos Realm lifeforms at the 5th level of the Chaos Realm will have trouble dealing with me. Tsing Hui was quite satisfied with his gains this time. Even though he'd stayed in the Burning Blood Master's Chaos universe for a few thousand years, the gains he'd made during that time were enough for him to pass the novice phase of the Chaos life form stage. Once he became a true Chaos life form, he'd immediately become an outstanding figure at the 4th level of the Chaos realm. If he could resonate with the broken immortal Tao civilization world and forge his own undying materials, he wouldn't have to fear the Burning Blood Master at his peak. Additionally, there was also the crystal ball that contained a trace of undying energy, as well as the equally wondrous magic lamp that he didn't know of. His gains were enormous. It's time to return. Even though the heavenly Lord of myriad treasures saw me becoming a true chaos life form in the river of time and proved that I've indeed stepped into the 4th level of the chaos realm in the future, it's better for me to return to the immortal Tao civilization world and obtain the last piece of the fortune jade. Only then will my transformation into a true chaos life form be truly smooth. As Tsing-Hui thought to himself, he sent an order to Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai through the will of the universe, ordering him to meet up with him in the Supreme God world. Naturally, Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai would have to figure out a way to return to the immortal Tao civilization world. Please use your precious time to log in to support Chingfen. Your support is Chingfen's greatest motivation. Chapter 962. It had taken less than 2 years for Immortal Emperor Vast Sea to arrive at the highest divine realm. However, he didn't bring good news. That formation originates from the Eternal Shrine. If we want to return, we have to borrow the power of that formation. Now that the Eternal Shrine has been moved to the Chaos Void, unless we can get it back, it'll be very difficult for me to set up a powerful formation to cross the Chaos Void and return to the domain of the Master of Chaos with my attainments in formations alone. We must use the Eternal Shrine. Yes, we have to use the Eternal Shrine. Only when we find the Eternal Shrine and reverse engineer the formation of the Eternal Shrine will we have hope of returning. Immortal Emperor Vast Sea explained. Tsing-Hui's heart sank when he heard Immortal Emperor Vast Sea's words. He'd tossed the Eternal Shrine into the Chaos Vortex and didn't know where it had been taken by the currents. It would be wishful thinking to retrieve it. The distance between one Chaos verse and another couldn't be measured with words. Even the most powerful Chaos lifeforms would need at least 10,000 years to fly from one Chaos verse to another. It wasn't unusual for them to spend hundreds of thousands or even millions of years on the journey. According to Tsing-Hui's estimation of the time it had taken for the Lord of Searing Blood to leave this Chaos verse and the evil god's invasion of the immortal Tao civilization, it had taken him at least 100,000 years to travel from his Chaos verse to the battlefield. 100,000 years, and that was taking into account the speed of Chaos lifeforms. It wouldn't be strange for a Chaos life form like Tsing-Hui to spend 10 million, 100 million, or even 1 billion years to travel to the immortal Tao civilization. It wouldn't have been a big deal if it had only taken 1 billion years, but the problem was that he couldn't travel to the immortal Tao civilization without encountering any dangers. If he ran into chaos storms, he'd be reduced to ashes. After all, those who weren't chaos or creation lifeforms were simply too small. If the distance between two chaos verses was likened to an ocean, then chaos and creation lifeforms would be the equivalent of steering a 10,000-ton ship. Tsing-Hui, on the other hand, was akin to rowing a small wooden boat. His speed and ability to withstand wind and waves were on a completely different level. Is there no other way? Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai shook his head. We can only go to the Chaos Void and retrieve the Eternal Shrine. Tsing-Hui frowned. The Chaos Void. The Chaos Void contained endless dangers. Even as a chaos creature, Tsing-Hui was extremely wary of it, especially since the Eternal Shrine had been swept away by the Chaos Vortex. He wanted to retrieve the Eternal Shrine from the Chaos Void. It would take at least a few hundred years. If he was unlucky, finding the Eternal Shrine would be a problem. However, according to Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai, finding the Eternal Temple and using the array in the Eternal Temple to reverse the teleportation array back to the territory of the Master of Chaos was the only way. Back then, I banished the Eternal Shrine and solved the problem of the Eternal Shrine once and for all. It was great, but now I have to swallow the bitter fruit myself. Tsing-Hui shook his head helplessly. You should deduce the teleportation formation during this period of time. I will enter the chaotic void and retrieve the Eternal Shrine. Understood. Immortal Emperor Tsang-Hai nodded. Be careful, Master Tsing-Hui. The farther you are from the Chaos Void, the more dangerous it is. I understand. Tsing-Hui grunted in response. In truth, the chaos void was the equivalent of an ocean, and the chaos verse was the equivalent of islands in the middle of the ocean. The closer one was to an island, the weaker the winds and waves. The further one was from the island, the greater the winds and waves. It wouldn't be difficult for ordinary experts to survive in the chaos verse for a few decades or even a century. However, if they were to be thrown into the depths of the chaos verse, a terrifying calamity would descend upon them in the very next second and wipe them out. After briefing Immortal Emperor Tsunghai on some matters, Tsing-Hui didn't waste any more time in the Master of Searing Blood's chaos void. He took to the skies and swiftly flew out of the chaos void. Upon arriving in the chaos void, Tsing-Hui stretched his body slightly. As a chaos being, he was much more at ease in the chaos void than in the chaos void even if he hadn't completely transformed. The reason he spent most of his time in the chaos void was because there were still many trivial matters he hadn't dealt with yet, and he couldn't change his habits as an ordinary life form for the time being. The void of chaos is the ultimate home of chaos life forms. It's a pity that just like how young beasts may be hunted down by other beasts when they hunt for food, weak chaos lifeforms may live well in the void of chaos, but there's still a considerable risk of death. Tsing-Hui sensed the connection between himself and the chaos void as he made his way to the place where he'd exiled the Eternal Shrine. He began to investigate the changes in the flow of chaos chi in the area. Unfortunately, more than 200 years had passed since he'd exiled the Eternal Shrine. Even if the shrine had left behind any traces during that time, they would have been destroyed by now. Tsing-Hui searched the area but found nothing. In the end, he could only determine a general direction and set off in that direction. However, this kind of tracing continued for less than 10 years before it was stopped by him. It's too slow. My speed in the chaotic void is much slower than the circulating speed of the chaotic yuan qi. With my current speed, it would take me over 4,000 years to catch up with the distance of 200 years from the Eternal Shrine. Tsing-Hui fell silent. The Eternal Shrine, catching up to it depended entirely on luck. The chances were extremely slim. If he couldn't catch up to it, returning to the domain of the Master of Chaos and the broken immortal Tao civilization would be an extravagant hope. In fact, Lord Searing Blood's return was imminent. It might take 1,000 years if he was quick, or a few thousand years if he was slow. He would definitely return to this chaos verse through the gradually forming coordinates. At that time, if he didn't leave this chaos verse and return to the world of the Lord of Chaos, then, his bones would be ground to dust by the Master of Searing Blood. A hopeless situation. Because of a small mistake, he'd forced himself into a hopeless situation. With my current speed, there's less than a 1% chance of finding the Eternal Shrine. If I can't find it, the Master of Searing Blood will definitely come back and kill me. After learning his lesson last time, the Master of Searing Blood won't make the same mistake again. Tsing-Hui sensed his own body. Finally, his gaze landed on the virtual immortal Tao civilization. To be precise, it was the unity law that supported the entire illusory immortal Tao civilization, which contained the 12 great Tao laws. He didn't seem to have a choice in the current situation. He could only take a gamble and ascend to 4th level Chaos Realm, metamorphosing into a true Chaos life form. Only by relying on his terrifying size and cultivation would he be able to instantly locate the Eternal Shrine and bring it back to the immortal Tao civilization. The Tao plate, Qing Su adjusted his state of mind. Bits and pieces of information regarding the 3rd layer of the Disk of Ways flashed through his head. At the same time, he constantly tidied up the laws of the world within him, circulating and revising them. Even for someone like him who was fully confident in his chances, breaking through to 4th level Chaos Realm was still a great challenge. He couldn't be too careful during the entire process. A month passed in the blink of an eye. After using this time to adjust his essence, spirit, and spirit to unprecedented heights, Tsing-Hui suddenly began. The entire illusory immortal Tao civilization world began to shrink. At the same time, with the great Tao of Unity at the lead, the other 12 great Tao laws began to revolve around the great Tao of Unity, forming a framework. For a moment, time seemed to flow backward in the vast illusory immortal Tao civilization. The principles were the bones, the sun and moon were the eyes, the rivers were the blood, the earth was the muscles, the four poles were the limbs, and the wind and clouds were the breath of life exhaled. As the virtual immortal Tao civilization disintegrated, a giant tens of millions of kilometers tall manifested in Xing Hui's mind. The origin point plate. This was the origin point plate that had to be traced back to the final step of the third level of the Tao plate. After condensing the origin point plate, there was clearly no way out for him. Xing Hui took a deep breath. In the next moment, the origin point plate began to vibrate violently. All of the law aura was crushed in an instant, returning to chaos and origin. With the power of these crushed laws as a guide, endless chaos qi in the void began to wildly condense around Xing Hui. The entire process lasted several hundred years. From the outside, he seemed to be completely wrapped in a sphere of chaos qi. The chaos qi within this sphere was so dense that it was unimaginable to ordinary people. Even if one tried their best to open their eyes, they could only see a patch of gray. It was impossible to tell day from night, east from east, or left from right. Xing Hui suddenly thought of something amidst this hazy chaos. He slowly uttered the first word he'd spoken since entering seclusion. It was like the first sound of the universe being born. Plate, rumble. At the next moment, the source point plate, which only existed in the spiritual world, suddenly appeared the moment the word was spat out. It seemed to have taken a step out of the virtual spiritual world and instantly broke the barrier between reality and illusion. It brazenly appeared in the real world as if it had merged with him. And then, an unprecedented strength began to erupt from his body. It was like his entire body had turned into the source and foundation of a great explosion. At this moment, he didn't hold back at all and completely erupted, rumble. The singularity explosion. The Big Bang of the universe. Within the explosion that shook up the chaotic space, Qing Su could sense his body and consciousness rapidly sublimating and metamorphosing at that moment. His consciousness seemed to leave his body, constantly rising, and rising. It was like a mortal who could only walk on the ground suddenly had the power to soar. Then, he constantly flew into the sky, higher and higher, higher and higher, higher and higher. As he flew into the sky, the outline of the mountain range gradually became clear. He stepped on the river, the vast earth was within his reach, and the sun, moon, and stars surrounded him. Everything between heaven and earth began to operate according to his will and his command. Chaos. Chaos. This was the true chaotic universe. This was the true chaotic life form. Chapter 963. A true chaos life form. Xing Hui quietly sensed his body. Or rather, the chaos verse he'd transformed into. After transforming into a true chaos life form, he no longer possessed the form of a human life form. His entire being was a universe, and he himself was the universe's will. Everything in the universe operated according to his will. This situation was somewhat similar to when he'd merged his consciousness with the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse. The difference was that the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse wasn't just larger than the one he'd manifested, but because it didn't belong to him, it was very difficult to control and couldn't allow his will to reflect the entire situation. On the other hand, the Chaos Verse he'd manifested was much more powerful and precise. It was like a person who completely obeyed his orders and did what he wanted to do couldn't be more efficient than himself. Sublimation. Xing Hui carefully recalled the various changes his consciousness had undergone during the sublimation process. It was his consciousness constantly splitting apart. If there were any accidents during the process, his main consciousness would be constantly lost in the process, resulting in him being unable to complete the transformation of the Chaos Verse. In the end, it would collapse along with the incomplete Chaos Verse, forming a vast chaos storm. That was all. Fortunately, he'd had the experience of merging with the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse long ago, and his consciousness had a certain period of adaptation to the splitting of the Chaos Verse will. Coupled with the fact that he'd accumulated an exceedingly strong foundation, he'd smoothly stepped into the fourth level of the Chaos Realm and transformed into a true Chaos life form. A Chaos life form. Qing Su exhaled deeply. He recalled every detail of his transformation into a chaotic universe, and he still felt lingering fear. Fortunately, I've finally succeeded. I've transformed my life form into a true chaotic life form, which is a chaotic universe. Muttering to himself, Tsing-Hui couldn't help but sense his body. He was currently a chaos life form that had just transformed, but even so, his body size had skyrocketed from his previous human form to a size that wasn't inferior to 1 billion light-years in size. 1 billion light-years. Even if it was a far cry from the Lord of Chaos's form, which radiated its own power to 10 trillion light-years away, such a massive increase in size still brought about unprecedented changes to him. At the very least, he did not need to expend too much effort to deal with a cultivator who was equivalent to a great god. All he had to do was split a territory of 10,000 light-years from his chaotic universe to envelop the great god. Then, he would use the split chaotic universe to trigger the birth and destruction of the universe, and he could easily turn the great god into dust along with the destruction of his chaotic universe. The process of universe creation and destruction that was comprehended from the 3rd level to the 4th level was the strongest killing move of the chaos lifeforms. Especially for the chaos lifeforms that could split infinitely, the power of this killing move was unleashed to the extreme. Splitting oneself, this is the cultivation method of chaos lifeforms. Although they can split themselves continuously, if their consciousness can't keep up with the rate of splitting, the split chaos verses will become uncontrollable existences. Apart from being used to attack or block attacks at critical moments, they won't be of any use at all. In fact, they'll even slow down their own mobility. Tsing-Hui had obtained the cultivation method of chaos lifeforms from the Lord of Searing Blood's chaotic universe. He had a thorough understanding of the 4th, 5th, and 6th levels of the chaos realm, and was even in the process of deriving the cultivation methods of the 4th and 5th levels. However, according to his original calculations, the 4th level of the Tao plate would be cultivated on the broken immortal Tao civilization. He needed to borrow the power of his origin plate and fortune jade to condense the broken immortal Tao civilization and fuse it into his chaos verse, thus opening the door to the 5th level of the chaos realm. Compared to the chaotic universe he'd created, the broken immortal Tao civilization was a remnant of the plate of eternity when it ascended to the eternal realm. Not only was it an immortal universe, but it also contained immortal characteristics that surpassed most immortal substances. If he could truly refine the broken immortal Tao civilization into his own chaotic universe would be assimilated by the immortal Tao civilization and evolve into immortal characteristics. The only difference was that he would lose his uniqueness as a chaotic life form, binding himself to the world of immortals from then on. However, Qing Su's current accomplishments completely relied on the Fortune Jade, and the Fortune Jade was the core of the world of immortals. Losing his uniqueness and binding himself to the world of immortals was the price he had to pay for borrowing the power of the Fortune Jade for himself all these years. Or rather, a reward. I'm not used to having such a massive body all of a sudden. Tsing-Hui shifted his body slightly. Just this movement had already caused a violent turbulence of vital energy. If there was a legendary life form or a powerful cultivator beside him at this time, they would definitely be swept away by the chaotic vital energy brought about by his body movement and be sent flying into the distance. In fact, he didn't even need to use too much force, and the chaos energy he generated would be enough to sweep a mighty expert into the depths of the primordial chaos, preventing them from returning to the chaos verse for a short period of time. In the end, they would perish to the corrosion of the chaos energy. The difference in strength brought about by such a drastic increase in cultivation could only be described as the difference between heaven and earth. No wonder even the weakest incarnation of the evil god can stand shoulder to shoulder with the strongest of great masters. Only after becoming a true chaos life form can one truly understand the true strength of chaos life forms. Tsing-Hui sighed and took a while to collect his thoughts. His gaze shifted slightly and landed on the Blazing Blood Lord's chaotic universe. Compared to himself, the Blazing Blood Lord's chaotic universe was clearly much larger. Tsing-Hui made some calculations and quickly came to a conclusion. 30,000 times. The volume of the Blazing Blood Lord's chaotic universe was equivalent to 30,000 times his own. I still need to fission for a period of time. My current body is even slightly inferior to a 5th-level chaos lifeforms. Xinghui quickly understood the gap between himself and the Blazing Blood Lord. Even though to a life form at the 4th and 5th level of the primal chaos realm, size didn't represent strength, and the key was to see who had more undying substance. But in many situations, when the difference in size was so great, the difference in strength between the two parties could still suppress the other party. I probably need 1,000 years to adapt to the changes in my body before I can undergo the first fission. However, I can only double my body size during the first fission. It's still too early for me to catch up to the Blazing Blood Lord. Xinghui shook his head and then looked into the distance. As he transformed into a chaos life form, his body size had directly expanded to a terrifying extent of 1 billion light-years. Originally, the so-called distance between himself and the Eternal Shrine could no longer be called distance. Xinghui could clearly see that it was not far away from him, 10 billion light-years, 10 billion light-years, to a chaos life form, it was indeed not far away. It was just like how ordinary people wouldn't think a distance of 10 meters was very far. 10 billion light-years away, the structure of the Eternal Shrine, which was as small as a speck of dust, was shrouded in fluorescent light. It rose and fell with the chaos energy and drifted to an unknown place. It's here. Xinghui thought to himself. He controlled a force formed by the chaotic universe and spread it toward the fluorescent light. It was like a person walking forward and then reaching out to grab the shrine. But when he really moved his body, he discovered that to move, not only did he need to expend strength, but his speed was also slow. It was all beyond his imagination. It was like a behemoth in the deep sea. Almost every distance required 10 times or even 100 times more strength to move. I've read about it in the records left behind by the Searing Blood Lord. Once a chaos life form completely transforms, it will possess a large body, but its speed will also be affected. Moreover, the larger the body, the greater the effect. I didn't expect the effect to be so great. Xinghui shook his head, somewhat speechless. Fortunately, 10 billion light-years wasn't too far. Xinghui moved his body and traversed that distance in less than 10 days. Then, he habitually condensed a part of the chaotic universe's hand and grabbed at the dust-like Eternal Shrine. But the first time he grabbed at it, his speed was so fast that the chaos energy generated by the hand formed from the chaotic universe formed a storm that directly blew the Eternal Shrine away, startling the few surviving legendary champions in the shrine and causing them to panic. After a long while, Xinghui managed to control his speed slightly. He grabbed the Eternal Shrine in his hand without blowing it away as much as possible and brought it into his chaotic universe. There was only one plane in his chaotic universe at the moment. It was so vast that words couldn't describe it. This plane was the foundation of the immortal civilization world that the Disk of Origins had turned into. In myths and legends, it could be called the primeval plane. After bringing the Eternal Shrine into his chaotic universe, Xinghui directly sent down his consciousness and formed a clone that arrived outside the Eternal Shrine. Even though the Eternal Divine Hall was still protected by a defensive barrier, the barrier could only stop legendary and great ability cultivators at most. To Qing Su, it was like paper to him. He only needed to pinch it slightly, and the barrier would be destroyed directly. Inside the defensive shield, the number of surviving cultivators in the Eternal Shrine had decreased from thousands to only 9, and each of them was extremely weak. Their bodies had been eroded by the chaos energy. Xinghui estimated that if he hadn't brought the Eternal Shrine into his chaotic universe, the 9 people in the shrine would have been eroded to death by the chaos energy within 30 years at most. None of them would have been spared. Chapter 964. There's no chaos energy. We're no longer in the chaos void. Wake up, Master of the Resplendent Star Tower. We seem to have left the chaos void. Where is this? At this moment, the only survivors in the Eternal Shrine were the few legendary life forms with supreme cultivation. After leaving the environment of the chaotic void, these supreme life forms recovered some of their vitality and at least had the strength to move. However, Xing Hui, who was in his human form, walked in from the outside and looked at them. Well, although we've left the chaos void, your survival is still in my hands. Therefore, you don't have to be happy too early. The high priest recognized Xing Hui's identity when he saw him. His face immediately darkened. What do you want? Xing Hui's gaze fell on these people. With a wave of his hand, these people were directly transferred out of the Eternal Shrine and imprisoned. At his current level, these practitioners who were considered the strongest among the legends were no longer a threat to him. Their life and death were just a matter of a thought. After expelling the troublemakers, his consciousness quickly penetrated into the Eternal Shrine. Soon, he understood every little detail of the Eternal Shrine. The Eternal Shrine was equivalent to the representative of the Burning Blood Lord. There were many good things in it, but because the Eternal Shrine had been wandering in the Chaos Void, they had used up all the resources available to them in order to survive. In addition, Xing Hui had broken through to the 4th tier of the Chaos Realm and become a true Chaos life form. His position was much higher than before. These resources, which were extremely precious to legends and even great divines, were nothing to him. The only thing he valued was the Eternal Shrine itself. The Eternal Shrine worshipped the Burning Blood Lord. Even the high priest who was in charge of the Eternal Shrine was, in fact, equivalent to a housekeeper. The real master was actually the Burning Blood Lord himself. The Burning Blood Lord had naturally put some thought into his own palace. The entire shrine was made of immortal material and was of a higher quality than a creation artifact. Although it did not have the various mysteries of a creation artifact, as a chaos life form, Xing Hui would definitely choose this shrine over a creation artifact. After looking at the Eternal Shrine for a moment, Xing Hui quickly understood the mysteries of this shrine. Its existence was indeed like the base of a super teleportation array. Although this was not its full function, it was not difficult to reverse the teleportation array with this object. Very good. Xing Hui nodded in satisfaction. Then, his terrifying body that was 1,000,000,000 light-years long began to move toward the chaotic universe of the Burning Blood Lord. Because the two of them were very close to each other and because the Chaos life form's movement speed was much faster than in the legendary period, it took less than 3 years for the chaotic universe of the Burning Blood Lord's chaotic universe. Buzz buzz. Xing Hui split off a strand of his consciousness and quickly projected it toward the chaotic universe of the Burning Blood Lord. However, before his consciousness could reach the chaotic universe of the Burning Blood Lord, the universe had already begun to boil violently and was about to condense the power of the chaotic universe to counterattack. Chaos life forms that have completed their metamorphosis are indeed different from those that have not. Metamorphosing into a true chaos life form will arouse the intense hostility of the chaotic universe itself. From this, I can infer that even if I really do derive the teleportation array of the Eternal Shrine, it won't be as peaceful as it was before. Perhaps the moment I teleport to the Master of Chaos domain, I'll be attacked by the Master of Chaos, Xing Hui muttered to himself. Although he was now a chaos life form, he was still a far cry from the Master of Chaos, who stood at the peak of the world and was only one step away from attaining ultimate eternity. I still have to use the laws of creation to create a physical incarnation with a complete life imprint and use that incarnation to enter the Master of Chaos domain. Xing Hui didn't slow down his movements. Although the universe would instinctively attack any chaos life form that tried to invade it, Xing Hui had already tamed the universe will of the Burning Blood Lord's chaotic universe. When the universe will's attack was about to erupt, his powerful consciousness immediately penetrated the chaotic universe and seized control of it. The chaotic universe of a 5th-level chaos life form, Xing Hui's powerful consciousness continuously poured into the chaotic universe. Last time, he hadn't been able to use much universal energy, but this time, he was able to monitor and investigate a much larger area. Although he still wasn't able to cover the entire Chaos Verse with a single thought, he was able to lock onto most of the planes of the Chaos Verse with his consciousness. According to the time in this chaotic universe, almost 2,000 years have passed. 2,000 years. The Burning Blood Lord will probably be back soon. Qing Su's consciousness roamed freely through the chaos verse for a while, and he immediately discovered this serious problem. He couldn't help but cast his gaze toward the burning Blood Lord's slough in the void sky ring. The burning Blood Lord had used this slough as a coordinate to teleport himself to this chaotic universe. Previously, Xinghui hadn't been able to do anything about it, but now. It just so happens that when I use the law of creation to create a new incarnation, it will definitely attract the attention of the Master of Chaos. To prevent me from exposing myself to the Master of Chaos, I'll let you attract his attention for me. Xinghui smiled faintly. Using the mysteries of the chaotic universe, he searched for a moment and quickly found Immortal Emperor Vast Sea. After notifying Immortal Emperor Vast Sea, the power of the two chaotic universes circulated at the same time. The eternal shrine in Xinghui's chaotic universe was immediately transferred by a vast and imposing force into the Burning Blood Lord's chaotic universe. It smashed into the shrine's original location with a mighty aura of energy. After doing that, Qing Su sent down a clone and directly arrived outside the Divine Hall. He said to Immortal Emperor Songhai, who had also been teleported there, "I've found the Eternal Divine Hall. Whether we can reverse engineer the teleportation formation will be up to you now." Immortal Emperor Songhai glanced at Qing Su's clone in confusion. He studied Qing Su and said in confusion, "Lord Qing Su, the feeling you give me right now seems rather different compared to before, but I can't put my finger on it." Xinghui smiled and didn't explain further to Immortal Emperor Vast Sea. "Alright, don't worry about it. Deduce the formation." Immortal Emperor Vast Sea nodded. As he sized up the Eternal Shrine, he said, "I've been studying the ultra-long-distance teleportation formation all these years. Now that I've seen this shrine, I'm 80% confident that I'll be able to deduce the formation. It'll just take some time, do it as soon as possible." Xinghui glanced at the teleportation runes that were gradually completing in the Burning Blood Lord's cadaver. The Burning Blood Lord is about to descend. We don't have much time left. I understand. Immortal Emperor Vast Sea nodded solemnly and quickly immersed himself in his research of the Eternal Shrine. As for Xinghui, he dispelled his avatar and couldn't be bothered to converse with Elder Eclipse and company. He returned to his chaos verse and took out the crystal ball and nameless magic lamp that he had yet to figure out. Remnant of Eternity. A river of stars will flash in the crystal ball from time to time. It records scenes of the future. Although those scenes are difficult to read, at least we know what the crystal ball is for. But what's the use of this lamp? Xinghui's gaze landed on the lamp, somewhat perplexed. After some thought, he began attempting to inject all sorts of nomological powers into the lamp in a futile attempt to activate it. Unfortunately, no matter what power he used, the lamp didn't show any profundity. Apart from being indestructible, it didn't seem to have any mystical properties. After more than 10 years of research, Xinghui could only helplessly put down the lamp. Although he had already transformed into a true chaos life form, he ultimately had no one to guide him. As a result, his horizons and knowledge were unable to match that of a true chaos life form. For example, he knew that the lamp in his hand was a mystical treasure that might be related to the secrets of ultimate eternity, but he couldn't figure out how to use it. What a pity. Xinghui let out a long sigh. Then, his gaze landed on the crystal ball. Over the past decade, the river of stars in the crystal ball had appeared more than 10 times and transmitted more than 10 information. Unfortunately, just as Elder Eclipse and company had said, the information couldn't be read at all. It was as though Xinghui's heart stirred. That river of stars, could it be the river of time? The river of time that only mighty existences that had stepped into ultimate eternity could leave behind? The river of time, in fact, it was equivalent to an eternal footprint. It could only be left behind in places that had been born into ultimate eternity. The immortal civilization world had a river of time. The world where the Lord of Red Hell once resided, also had one. In order to communicate with the Qingping sword spirit, who is suspected to be in the River of Time, the immortal civilization has spent countless years figuring out a method to analyze the information transmitted from the River of Time. Xing Hui's heart stirred as he quickly used the method developed by the immortal civilization to analyze the information transmitted from the crystal ball. On a particular day half a year later, Xing Hui received a piece of information that suddenly turned clear. The scene formed was the scene of Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse being destroyed. Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse has been destroyed. Upon seeing the scene that he barely managed to analyze, Xing Hui was slightly taken aback. Who can destroy Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse? With this surprise in mind, Xing Hui quickly did a deep analysis of the information. Finally, he obtained an outcome that left him wearing a strange expression. Lord of Chaos. The culprit behind the destruction of Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse was none other than the Lord of Chaos. Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse was at least hundreds of thousands of years away from the Lord of Chaos, but his Chaos Verse was ultimately destroyed by the Lord of Chaos. What happened during this period of time? When did this piece of news come about? 10,000 years later? 100,000 years later? 1,000,000 years later? Or 10 million years later? With this question in mind, Xing Hui once again did a deeper analysis of the information in the crystal ball. Chapter 965. So the destruction of the chaotic universe is related to me. After a long time, Xing Hui finally came to this conclusion based on the information he had managed to decipher. After pondering for a moment, he quickly understood the reason. It was related to using the Burning Blood Lord to attract the Lord of Chaos' attention when he used the teleportation formation to teleport to the domain of the Lord of Chaos. From the looks of it, this Master of Burning Blood is rather unlucky. However, the future of any living being is not set in stone, especially a future that can be seen clearly. It's even easier for people to change it. Therefore, the scene I'm seeing right now only proves that my method of heading to the Master of Chaos territory and attracting his attention is feasible. As for how things will develop, it's still unknown. Qing Su thought. He planned on continuing to study the crystal ball that contained the information of the River of Time. However, at this moment, Immortal Emperor Zhang found Qing Su and brought him the good news he had been waiting for. The teleportation formation has been reversed. Next, we can use it to return to the Lord of Chaos territory. Immortal Emperor Vast Sea smiled faintly. We've finally succeeded. However, there's a slight drawback to this teleportation formation. Since we'll be teleporting from an extremely distant place to the Lord of Chaos territory, the energy fluctuations we'll cause will be very vast. There's a high chance we'll attract the Lord of Chaos' attention, so we have to find a way to remedy this problem. Immortal Emperor Vast Sea added, perhaps we can use the method we used when we first arrived in this chaotic universe and use the power of the law of creation to reincarnate the two of us. This way, we might be able to hide from the Lord of Chaos before he realizes what's going on. The only problem is that this time, you have to wake me up as soon as possible. I don't want the same experience to happen a second time. That's a good idea. Xing Hui nodded. In truth, he didn't tell Immortal Emperor Vast Sea that the law of creation couldn't be hidden from the Lord of Chaos. However, he already had a plan. Using the Burning Blood Lord as a cover, he should be able to avoid the Lord of Chaos and achieve a similar goal. Therefore, he didn't mention this to Immortal Emperor Vast Sea. Even if he did, it would only make Immortal Emperor Vast Sea worry. It wouldn't be of any help to the overall situation. Do you have any friends or family you need to bring along with you? If you do, go and prepare it. Xing Hui said. Time is of the essence. The Lord of Bloodburn could return to this chaos verse at any moment through some unknown method. That's why while I'm researching the teleportation array, I've already summoned all the family members I plan to bring to the immortal Dao civilization. They're willing to come with me. Alright, go and get ready. We'll set off when the time comes. Yes. Immortal Emperor Zhang nodded and quickly went to prepare. A month later, Qing Su did not inform anyone. He just stood on the teleportation formation of the Eternal Sacred Hall with Immortal Emperor Songhai, preparing for its activation. There were not many people who planned to return to the Immortal Dao civilization with Immortal Emperor Songhai. His wife, Bai Lin, was one of them. The rest were his son and 2 daughters. In addition, there were a few loyal followers. This was because Immortal Emperor Songhai deliberately reduced the number of friends and family members. Otherwise, even if this number was multiplied by 100 times, it still wouldn't be enough. There's no time to lose. I'll start now. Xing Hui said. Immortal Emperor Songhai nodded. Once you reach the domain of the Lord of Chaos, circulate the laws of creation as quickly as possible. I'll leave the rest to you, Lord Xing Hui. Leave it to me. Xing Hui agreed with a smile. He then channeled the power of laws and infused it into the teleportation formation. The formation set up in the Eternal Divine Palace radiated light in all directions and spread outside the palace. A surge of energy that was 100 times greater than the last teleportation radiated from Xing Hui's body. If it weren't for Xing Hui's ascension as a chaos being, he would have been drained of all energy in this brief moment. This intense absorption lasted for a few breaths. Immortal Emperor Songhai, who was waiting for the teleportation formation to operate, seemed to have understood something. His eyes gradually widened. Seeing that the teleportation formation was absorbing too much energy and causing the entire Eternal Temple to tremble slightly, he hurriedly shouted, "Wait! Wait! Lord Xing Hui, please stop the energy input." "What's wrong?" Qing Su was rather confused, but he still stopped channeling energy into the teleportation formation. As he stopped, the energy condensed in the teleportation formation gradually subsided and dissipated. However, during this process, layers of crystallization appeared in the main hall of the Eternal Divine Palace. The crystallized particles were, without exception, an aggregation of the purest energy and contained the most profound power of laws. If a glorious sun-tier powerhouse were to refine and absorb all of these crystals, he would definitely be able to ascend to the legendary realm in one go. This energy! My goodness! Immortal Emperor Songhai gasped. Immortal Emperor Songhai took a deep breath with disbelief. "Lord Qing Su, how can you have so much energy in your body? I find it strange. Why is the energy consumption this time is at least 100 times, or even 1,000 times more than the last time? Especially since, the teleportation formation doesn't seem to have been activated yet? It should be overloaded." Immortal Emperor Songhai hesitated for a moment and said. At the same time, his eyes fell on Xing Hui with a trace of awe and disbelief. "Lord Xing Hui, the teleportation formation is in an overloaded state. It seems, it's not teleporting us, who are equivalent to legendary, glorious sun tier, moonlight tier, or starlight tier. Instead, it's an even larger entity, one that far exceeds the capacity of the teleportation formation. According to the energy response in the teleportation formation, the size of this entity is at least 1,000 times larger than a legendary powerhouse." Hearing Immortal Emperor Songhai's words, Xing Hui immediately understood that Immortal Emperor Songhai had already seen through the energy response in the teleportation formation. Without hesitation, he nodded. "I know what you want to ask. You're right. I've already broken through and become a real chaotic life form." A real chaotic life form. Immortal Emperor Songhai had already mentally prepared himself from the reaction of the teleportation formation, but when he heard Xing Hui admit it himself, he still felt an indescribable tremor and shock. A chaotic life form. A real chaotic life form. Xing Hui had actually taken the crucial step that countless beings in the immortal Dao civilization had failed to take, becoming a chaotic life form. Although the immortal Dao civilization's origin immortal saints weren't inferior to true chaos and creation beings in terms of cultivation level, their power was restricted by the immortal Dao civilization's world. As a result, they couldn't reach that level of power for a long time, just like how the Lord of Burning Blood's chaotic universe was sealed by the universal will. After the chaos verse was sealed away, there were a large number of legendary experts. These legendary experts, in terms of their insights into the Tao, were actually the equivalent of powerful divine abilities. However, their destructive power, they might not even be a match for the hegemons of the Lord of Chaos. This was the shackles and restraints that the chaotic universe placed on its cultivators. The Great Ultimate Plate and Eternal Plate had done this in order to completely seal off the aura of the immortal Tao civilization and hide it in the primal chaos void. This gave the immortal Tao civilization a stable environment, allowing its inhabitants to cultivate in peace without having to worry about the invasion of foreign life forms or the plundering of those terrifying beings in the primal chaos void. Unfortunately, due to various reasons, the seal seemed to have been broken by a certain power, and the immortal Tao civilization was eventually discovered and understood by foreign life forms. Then, taking advantage of the half-broken shackles and the fact that many cultivators could not quickly recover their strength to their cultivation realm, they launched an unprecedented invasion of the immortal Tao civilization, leading to a great war between the immortal Tao civilization and the destruction of the entire world. Since then, the immortal Tao civilization had lived under the covetous gaze of the Lord of Chaos, Lord of Time, Lord of Gods, and even the many evil gods that roamed the chaos void. Every day, the immortal Tao civilization lived in fear and trepidation, a life that could end its civilization at any moment. But now that the immortal Tao civilization had been damaged for many years, finally, someone had once again stepped into that supreme realm. In the immortal Tao civilization, this realm was known as the Origin Tao Saint Realm. The immortal Tao civilization's revival had finally ushered in a faint ray of light at this moment. Immortal Emperor Tsung Hai was shocked and touched like never before. Under this shock, his consciousness seemed to have broken through some kind of shackles. His aura surged and he broke through to the realm of great divine masters, becoming a top existence like the Lord of Plentiful Treasures. Xing Hui blinked at the result, but then smiled and said, "Congratulations, Immortal Emperor Vast Sea." "Ah, no, I should call you Heavenly Lord Vast Sea now." "It's not too late, it's not too late, it's not too late," Heavenly Lord Vast Sea stammered. It wasn't clear whether he was referring to his own cultivation breakthrough, or the fact that Xing Hui had finally become a chaos life form and reignited the dawn of the immortal Tao civilization's revival. "Heavenly Lord Vast Sea, take a rest and consolidate your cultivation. You just said that the transportation formation is overloaded. Does that mean it can't transport me, who's already at the 4th level of the Chaos Realm?" "It's not that it can't, but the energy required is too great. Even if you burn all the energy in your body, Lord Xing Hui, you still won't be able to support the formation's normal operation." Heavenly Lord Vast Sea calmed his excitement and said quickly. He couldn't wait to take Xing Hui to Jade Dragon Soar's victorious sky and tell the news to every survivor in the immortal Tao civilization. "The energy required is so great that it won't be enough even if I burn the entire Chaos Verse?" Qing Su was slightly stunned when he heard that. Soon after, he thought of something. "I don't have enough energy, but someone else does." As he spoke, his gaze landed on the Chaos Verse of the Burning Blood Lord that was 30,000 times larger than him. Chapter 966. Since it wasn't his Chaos Verse, he didn't feel the pinch squandering it. Xing Hui freely handed over control of Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse to Heavenly Lord Vast Sea, and Heavenly Lord Vast Sea didn't disappoint him. Under Xing Hui's orders, Elder Eclipse and the others worked together to set up a massive teleportation array in less than 3 years. The entire array was massive, with a diameter of more than 1,000,000 kilometers. Furthermore, as it absorbed the Chaos-verse energy, the edges of the array formation produced pillars of light that reached straight into the sky. They were dozens of kilometers thick, illuminating more than half of the supreme celestial world. Lord Xing Hui, the preparations are complete. However, if we really teleport your true body over in one go, the Chaos-verse will collapse by at least 1%. Furthermore, as a mighty chaos life form, you will quickly be exposed once you are teleported over. Therefore, I have slightly modified the teleportation array. Not only can it teleport you over, but we also plan on teleporting Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse. Compared to Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse, you are much smaller. If we teleport together, even if the Lord of Chaos attacks, he will first attack Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse, said Heavenly Lord Vastsi. Yes, Lord Vastsi. Having made a breakthrough in his cultivation, his abilities had also improved significantly. Oh. When Tsing Hui heard Heavenly Lord Vasti's words, he suddenly recalled the scene he had seen not long ago. It was the scene of Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse being torn apart by the Lord of Chaos. Could it be, the source of this scene was this teleportation array? It can consume the energy of Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse to teleport to his Chaos Verse? I've tested it, and it's feasible. Of course, teleporting such a massive mass over places a huge burden on the teleportation array. Thankfully, not only did I reverse engineer the teleportation array, but I also perfected the teleportation array through the runes Lord Burning Blood left behind in his shed body. These runes are equivalent to a passageway that connects two chaos verses. They point out the direction of teleportation for us. Under such circumstances, as long as the teleportation energy is sufficient, we can still teleport Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse over. When Heavenly Lord Vastsi said that, he had a look of excitement on his face. This way, not only can we use Lord Burning Blood to attract the Lord of Chaos's attention, but we can also completely resolve the threat he poses to us. It's killing two birds with one stone. The only price is that Lord Burning Bloods will consume 90% of his mass during the teleportation, but it's fine. At such a close distance, Burning Blood will be exposed to the Lord Burning Blood's body. Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse will. Tsing Hui looked at Heavenly Lord Vastsi in amazement. Lord Burning Blood's trip to the Chaos Verse had changed the former Immortal Emperor and current Heavenly Lord Vastsi greatly. He had even come up with such a vicious method to kill two birds with one stone. However, whether it was the Burning Blood Lord or the Primal Chaos Lord, strictly speaking, they were both his enemies. Although this method was vicious, it could indirectly weaken the power of his enemies, so he naturally agreed to it without hesitation. Alright, we'll do as you say. Then I'll do it, Heavenly Lord Vastsi said. In the end, he suggested, this way, I'm afraid that the billions of beings living in Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse will all perish when Lord Burning Blood's Chaos Verse is destroyed by the Lord Chaos. However, Lord Tsing Hui, your Chaos Verse has just been created and needs to be filled with life, right? This is where your opportunity lies. If you transfer these life forms to your Chaos Verse will greatly shorten the evolution process of life. As long as these cultivators spend thousands of years adapting to the laws of your Chaos Verse, they'll quickly mature and be able to follow your orders to wage war everywhere. Tsing Hui nodded. He had no intention of letting this opportunity slip by. It had to be known that wars between chaos and creation lifeforms didn't just involve using their own body mass and eternity matter to launch attacks, they also involved invasions. They could send a large number of legendary and divine ability cultivators into the enemy's Chaos Verse to promote their own cultivation system and use the laws of Grand Tao they carried to interfere with the operation of the enemy's laws and reduce their control over their own Chaos Verse. After all, when chaos lifeforms and chaos lifeforms were similar in strength, a war would start over 10,000 years at the very least. Longer wars could last for millions or even tens of millions of years without difficulty. Over such a long period of accumulation, even the slightest bit of advantage would be magnified until it became the foundation for victory and defeat. Therefore, the combat power of the lifeforms of the Chaos Verse was equally important. Even though an ordinary legendary life form could be easily slain by a single incarnation of a chaos life form, what if there were enough legendary experts invading their world? Tens of thousands of them. That way, even an incarnation of a chaos life form would have to expend some effort. With his attention focused on the internal affairs of the Chaos Verse, he would naturally be less vigilant against external attacks. With both internal and external troubles, the day of defeat was not far off. It was said that some creation lifeforms relied on their advantage in speed to cultivate a large number of third-level Chaos Realm cultivators. Every time they fought against chaos lifeforms and creation lifeforms of the same level, they would immediately make contact with the enemy's world and then send out all the third-level Chaos Realm cultivators they cultivated in their Chaos Verse to invade the enemy's Chaos Verse and use this tactic to destroy the enemy like a swarm of locusts. Due to the importance of third-level Chaos Realm cultivators, Tsing-Hui didn't have much objection to accepting the billions of lifeforms from the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse. Time was of the essence, so neither Tsing-Hui nor the Lord of Myriad Treasures dared to delay. With the power of the will of the Chaos Verse, he quickly gave the order to move to every corner of the Chaos Verse. At the same time, he controlled the enormous body of his Chaos Verse and made a part of it overlap with the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse, opening up countless passageways that led to his Chaos Verse. At the end of the passageways, he split and created many planes that could be safely inhabited. As for the core plane he named the Wilderness, he didn't intend to let anyone enter. It was a place reserved for the immortal Dao civilization. Such a large-scale migration naturally set off waves in the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse. Countless people were extremely opposed to the order. Tsing-Hui didn't insist on it. He had already informed these people that the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse might face a devastating attack in the near future, but they were still stubbornly unwilling to leave. He would follow them. After all, compared to the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse, the number of times his Chaos Verse had split was too few. If all the lifeforms in the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse were to be transferred to his Chaos Verse, it would cause a population crisis. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. During these 100 years, Tsing-Hui had constantly moved the lifeforms in the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse, but even so, the number of cultivators who were willing to follow Tsing-Hui to his Chaos Verse was still less than 1/10 of the total population of the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse. Clearly, these people were either reluctant to part with the foundation they had established in their Chaos Verse, or they simply didn't believe that the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse would fall into destruction. This was especially true for the members of the Sacrificial Blood Shrine. Although they had rebelled against the Eternal Shrine's rule, they had boundless confidence in the Burning Blood Lord. After all, according to the historical records of the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse, there had been 4 Chaos and Creation Realm lifeforms who had fallen at his hands. The most recent one had been the Lord of Scarlet Hell 3 million years ago. Many members of the Sacrificial Blood Shrine had participated in the war against the Lord of Scarlet Hell. This was also the source of their confidence that the Burning Blood Lord wouldn't be defeated and that their Chaos Verse wouldn't be destroyed. Tsing-Hui didn't pay too much attention to them. After 100 years, the Lord of Plentiful Treasures had finished revising the teleportation formation again. This time, the formation covered almost half of the Supreme Divine Realm. Pillars of light could be seen rising into the sky from most corners of the Supreme Divine Realm, filling the entire Divine Realm. "Can we begin?" Tsing-Hui asked. After so many years, he was somewhat worried that the city lord of the colossal dragon city had already joined forces with others to steal the Fortune Jade fragment. "Yes." The Lord of Plentiful Treasures nodded solemnly and glanced behind him. Once the teleportation formation is activated, the entire Supreme Divine Realm will be completely destroyed. There's no need to be merciful in the face of the enemy's destruction. Tsing-Hui said faintly, then added, "There's no time to lose. To avoid the Burning Blood Lord's sudden return, I'll begin immediately." The Lord of Plentiful Treasures nodded. Tsing-Hui immediately communicated with the will of the universe, and the extremely powerful energy of the entire Chaos Verse began to continuously pour into the teleportation formation. For a moment, the formation's light skyrocketed, illuminating the entire Supreme Divine Realm in a vast expanse of white. As the Chaos Verse poured energy into the teleportation formation, the barren regions at the edge of the Chaos Verse began to gradually collapse and be annihilated. All the energy was drawn out and turned into the formation's energy source. As the teleportation formation was further activated, more and more Chaos Verses collapsed and were annihilated. Gradually, it involved many secondary planes inhabited by living beings. For a moment, these secondary planes with living beings rapidly ushered in destructive natural disasters. Countless living beings were annihilated along with the collapse of the planes and the annihilation of the universe. In the later stages, the range of collapse further extended to the main plane. Even the main plane couldn't withstand the energy demand of the teleportation formation and began to collapse in patches. The entire chaos-verse was in an apocalyptic atmosphere. Fortunately, after drawing most of the energy of the entire chaos-verse, the teleportation formation in the Supreme Divine Realm was finally activated. As the terrifying ripples that rippled across the void of chaos unfurled, a violent storm of chaos swept across an area of 100 trillion light-years. No living being was spared from the tempest, not even chaos beings that had yet to complete their metamorphosis. When the energy waves were stimulated to the extreme, the two chaos verses, one big and one small, were suddenly swept away by the chaos energy and disappeared without a trace, leaving behind the turbulent chaos storm in the chaos verse that didn't calm down for a long time. Chapter 967. The Domain of the Lord of Chaos. This was the subsidiary world that the Lord of Searing Blood had used to teleport away. Most of the time, this subsidiary world was calm and tranquil, but on this day, all of that peace was shattered by a violent explosion of energy. The terrifying torrent of energy, mixed with vast and majestic waves, instantly filled the entire auxiliary world. It immediately burst the auxiliary world, and the remaining force did not diminish as it collided with the Lord of Chaos and the broken world of the immortal Tao civilization. The collision of energy against energy and the collision of Chaos Verse against Chaos Verse instantly attracted the attention of countless top-tier experts. Of all of them, the ones who reacted the quickest were the Lord of Time and the Lord of Pantheon, who were the closest to the collision. The reason the Lord of Chaos hadn't been the first to react, this was directly related to the Lord of Chaos's extreme size. Due to its large size, his movements were affected. However, because this Chaos Verse had appeared right next to the Lord of Chaos, when the Lord of Pantheon and the Lord of Time projected their consciousnesses in this direction, the Lord of Chaos consciousness also descended. But before they could figure out who this Chaos Verse was and how it dared to prance around right under the nose of the Lord of the Chaos, another Chaos Verse that was even larger than the one they were in came crashing down from the void and pushed the Chaos Verse to the side in the blink of an eye. What surprised the Lord of Time and the Lord of Pantheon was that this new Chaos Verse, they recognized it. And the Lord of Chaos was even more familiar with it. So familiar that the Lord of Chaos couldn't quite believe that this new Chaos Verse had actually dared to appear right under his nose. Rumble. In the next instant, the part of the Lord of Chaos's terrifying body embedded in the broken immortal civilization suddenly moved. It appeared to be moving violently in rage, with violent energy and airflow directly shaking the entire broken immortal civilization. Even the broken immortal civilization occupied by the Lord of Time and Lord of Gods suffered varying degrees of impact. The impact even affected the Lord of Time and Lord of Gods themselves, forcing them to put some distance between themselves and the Lord of Chaos so that they would not be caught in the crossfire of the enraged Lord of Chaos. The Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, and the Lord of Pantheon had all moved at the same time, shocking the many chaos and creation lifeforms who were cruising around the broken immortal Tao civilization and waiting for an opportunity to strike. Some of the chaos and creation lifeforms even moved closer, wanting to figure out what was going on. Of all the chaos and creation lifeforms who didn't know what was going on, the most dumbfounded of all was the Lord of Burning Blood, who was hiding in the Lord of Chaos domain. He was one step away from teleporting back to his own Chaos Verse. The Lord of Burning Blood's plan had reached its final stage. All he needed to do was wait another 1 or 2 centuries for the teleportation coordinates he'd left in his own Chaos Verse to be activated. He'd be teleported directly to his own Chaos Verse and become one with it, quickly recovering the might of a 5th-level Chaos Realm expert. But he never would have thought that just as he was about to succeed, his Chaos Verse would actually run in front of him. Run in front of the Lord of Chaos, a peak Chaos life form. A moment later, the Lord of Chaos seemed to understand something. He let out a furious roar, "You little bastard! You deserve to die!" At the same time, to ensure that his Chaos Verse wouldn't be destroyed by the Lord of Chaos, he immediately transformed into a beam of divine light and rushed into his Chaos Verse. He quickly began to control the entire Chaos Verse with the help of the Chaos Verse will. But just like a person whose spirit had been out of his body for a long time, when returning to his body, he needed time to adapt. At the very least, he had to let his blood circulate again and so on. This required time, a lot of time, especially for chaos lifeforms who had extremely long timelines. It would take at least a dozen years. When the Lord of Burning Blood regained control over his chaotic universe, Ching Su split off a portion of his soul and used the mysteries of the laws of creation to directly project it into the damaged world of immortal civilization. At the same time, he controlled his chaotic universe and rapidly flew towards the chaotic space, doing everything he could to widen the distance between him and the Lord of Chaos. Although his Chaos Verse had grown a lot over the years, it was still only 1/10,000th the size of the Lord of Burning Blood's Chaos Verse. On the other hand, the Lord of Chaos was 10,000 times larger than the Lord of Burning Blood's Chaos Verse at its peak. In other words, the Lord of Chaos was at least 100 million times larger than him. It should be known that the sun he lived in when he was immortal was only 1,000,000 times the size of Earth. In front of the sun, Earth was actually just a grain of rice in front of a basketball. It wasn't even comparable to a marble. Such a huge difference in size made it almost impossible to compare the two. No matter how much immortal matter he had, he couldn't shake the Lord of Chaos in the slightest. The difference in size between the two was too great. Under such circumstances, Tsing Hui had no intention of fighting the Lord of Chaos at all. He just controlled his body to constantly widen the distance between the two. Although the Lord of Chaos wanted to catch both Tsing Hui and the Lord of Burning Blood in one fell swoop, the Lord of Burning Blood's subsidiary world was in a position that the Lord of Chaos couldn't reach. In addition, the Lord of Chaos' reaction was slower than the Lord of Gods and the Lord of Time, so he lost the most precious opportunity. As a result, Tsing Hui had already distanced himself from the Lord of Chaos in the past few decades. During this time, the Lord of Burning Blood also controlled his Chaos Verse to escape. In a situation where he could only choose one target, the Lord of Chaos divided his Chaos Verse, which was about 100 times the size of Tsing Hui's Chaos Verse, to attack Tsing Hui, while the rest of his power completely enveloped the Lord of Burning Blood. He wanted to swallow the Lord of Burning Blood into his body first and then slowly kill him. The scene before him seemed to have happened quickly, but in reality, it would take hundreds or even thousands of years for chaos and creation beings who had extremely long timelines. In other words, it would take hundreds or thousands of years for Tsing Hui to be attacked by the Lord of Chaos's power or for the Lord of Chaos to envelop the Lord of Burning Blood and then destroy his Chaos Verse. During this time, the laws of creation mixed with a part of Tsing Hui's spirit power had already been projected into the broken immortal Tao civilization and quickly completed a wave of reincarnation. With the experience of the previous reincarnation, this time's reincarnation went very smoothly. His memories weren't affected in the slightest. Under these circumstances, even though his reincarnated body had to cultivate from the beginning, Tsing Hui still managed to break through to the realm of a great expert in a short 100 years thanks to his 4th-level Chaos Realm cultivation and the cultivation resources he had on him. Due to my size, I won't be able to escape quickly. Moreover, I'm afraid that the Master of Burning Blood has been completely tricked by me this time. Moreover, his body has already been reduced by 90% during the teleportation. I estimate that in less than 10,000 years, he will be completely defeated and annihilated by the Master of Chaos. Moreover, once the Master of Chaos kills the Master of Burning Blood and doesn't obtain the Divine Creation Jade Fragment from the Master of Burning Blood, he will definitely set his sights on me. At that time, I will have to face the Master of Chaos' pursuit. When Tsing Hui thought of this, his expression turned grave. He had to obtain the Fortune Jade before the Lord of Chaos defeated Lord of Burning Blood and then resonate with the broken immortal Tao world to break through to the 5th-level Chaos Realm. The broken immortal Tao world itself had an extremely strong foundation. Once he could use it to break through, he'd be considered one of the best among the 5th-level Chaos Realm beings. Perhaps he still wouldn't be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Time, or the Master of Gods, but he'd have no problem protecting himself from them. The whereabouts of the last piece of the fortune jade is in the hands of the giant dragon city lord. Xing Hui estimated his current location and hurried towards the Lord of Chaos territory. The Lord of Chaos was currently engaged in a fierce battle with the Lord of Searing Blood. Since the battlefield was within the domain of the immortal Tao civilization that the Lord of Chaos occupied, it naturally caused the Chaos verse that belonged to the Lord of Chaos to shift. Under such circumstances, the positions of many major worlds had changed considerably. Even if the Lord of Chaos wanted to maintain the stability of his Chaos verse, there would still be countless teleportation arrays that would malfunction. There would also be countless major worlds that would be disoriented, colliding and fusing with other major worlds. Qing Su identified the location as he constantly refined fragments of laws to increase the cultivation of his body. However, even with that being the case, it still took him over 100 years to find the miniature world where the Grand Development Sect resided. Fortunately, he'd refined 8 law fragments during that time and raised his cultivation to the level of 8 runes. In addition, he was a chaos being himself, so his utilization and understanding of power exceeded that of a great master by a level. He should be able to unleash power at the peak of 9 runes, nearing the level of 10 runes. It was a pity that he didn't carry the Scarlet Abyss sword with him. Otherwise, he might even be able to attempt to kill a peak being like the Qilin progenitor. Ha, is this the new powerhouse of our sovereign divine ranking, Sword Emperor Xing Hui? Sword Emperor Xing Hui's cultivation must have skyrocketed after several thousand years. I'm afraid no one will be able to shake his position on the sovereign divine ranking. As soon as Xing Hui arrived at the Great Development Sect, he happened to run into an acquaintance who greeted him with a smile. Yin Kongzi. Xing Hui nodded slightly at the man before him. It had been several thousand years since he'd last been to the Great Development Sect. Although these several thousand years had been a long time to him, and he'd even gone to the chaos verse of another great existence and experienced a great deal, it was nothing out of the ordinary for a great master like Yin Kongzi to go into seclusion for several thousand years. Especially since Xing Hui had obtained several law fragments, Yin Kongzi wouldn't be surprised if he didn't show himself for several thousand years. Chapter 968. You're quite carefree. Xing Hui laughed. Can't help it. I can't compare to you guys. You seem to have gotten quite a few law fragments at once. Yin Kongzi shrugged helplessly. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something. Oh right, the great master of chaos seems to have ordered black and white reverends to gather cultivators to invade a chaotic universe trapped by His Majesty the Master of Chaos. He needs a lot of manpower. Sword Emperor Xing Hui, did you come out of seclusion to show off your skills after hearing the news? When Qing Su heard Yin Kongzi's words, he immediately understood that the trapped chaos verse was the Burning Blood Lord. The Master of Chaos even mobilized the forces stationed in the immortal Tao civilization. It seemed that he really intended to use all his strength to destroy and kill the Burning Blood Lord in one go. After all, as far as he knew, only a tenth of the Lord of Chaos's chaotic universe overlapped with the immortal Tao civilization. The so-called Great Masters who stood guard in the Lord of Chaos's domain were, in fact, the top experts of his world who had evolved according to the cultivation system of this world. They were the local specialties of this overlapping region, and in the Lord of Chaos's own universe, there were definitely tens of thousands of third-tier Chaos Realm lifeforms. With such a powerful force at his disposal, the Master of Chaos still summoned black and white reverends. It was clear that he was determined to destroy the Burning Blood Lord. His Majesty the Master of Chaos has such a deep foundation. Isn't it easy to destroy a small chaotic universe? Moreover, the third-tier chaotic realm cultivators in the territory of the Master of Chaos look down on us great masters who have integrated the cultivation system of the immortal Tao civilization. We don't belong to the same path as them. If we go, we'll just embarrass ourselves. Therefore, I won't go. Xing Hui said. Yin Kongzi nodded when he heard Qing Su's words. That's what I think as well. Cultivators like us should search for law fragments everywhere patiently, so that we can refine enough law fragments as soon as possible and reach the realm of sovereigns. Before we become sovereigns, it's pointless to think too much. You're quite open-minded. Xing Hui smiled and asked again, I came here to visit the giant dragon city master. I wonder if the giant dragon city master is in the Grand Development Gate? The whereabouts of the sect master and the few elders have always been secretive. It is not something that people of our level can easily find out. Sword Emperor Xing Hui, if you want to know, it would be better for you to head to the giant dragon city lord's mountain peak and ask. That's exactly what I was thinking. Xing Hui nodded at Yin Kongzi. Then, with a leap, he headed towards the mountain where the giant dragon city master was. Watching Xing Hui leave, Yin Kongzi could not help but reveal a trace of envy in his eyes. As early as a few thousand years ago, Xing Hui had already displayed battle strength that was not inferior to an ultimate expert. He had even survived the pursuit of the eight-armed dragon god and great emperor Qi Shao. Now that a few thousand years had passed, he had most likely refined all the law fragments that he had obtained. With the power of these law fragments and the creation divine weapons increase in strength, his true cultivation was probably not inferior to any of the elders or sect master of the Grand Development Gate. He might even be stronger than an ordinary elder. Such an achievement was enough for Yin Kongzi to look up to. He could not help but sigh when he thought of the scene where he and Xing Hui were on equal footing a few thousand years ago. There was really no comparison between people. While Yin Kongzi was sighing, Xing Hui had already arrived at the giant dragon city master's mountain peak. Although the Grand Development Gate station was a fragment of the Dao Ocean, its area could not be compared to the one controlled by the immortal Dao civilization. It only took Xing Hui a moment to arrive at the giant dragon city master's location. As an elder of the Grand Development Gate, the mountain that the giant dragon city master occupied was several times larger than the mountain that Xing Hui was at in terms of area, location, and design. The number of servants and followers that traveled to and fro the giant dragon city master's mountain peak was not just a few hundred people, but tens of thousands. Moreover, almost all of them had the cultivation of a sovereign. As soon as Xing Hui arrived above the giant dragon city master's mountain peak, an almighty expert who remembered his appearance by heart immediately flew up and bowed respectfully. So it's the Hunyuan Empire's Hunyuan Sword Emperor, Xing Hui. May I know what orders Sword Emperor Xing Hui has for me? Is the giant dragon city master here? I have a matter to discuss with the city master. Unfortunately, after the city master went into seclusion for 5,000 years, he left our Grand Development Gate station 100 years ago and went to the war zone. Sword Emperor Xing Hui, if you have something important to say, I might as well pass it on to the giant dragon city master. War zone. Xing Hui nodded. Since the giant dragon city master is in the war zone, then I will go directly to the war zone to pay him a visit. You can send a message to the giant dragon city master. Yes, I believe that the giant dragon city master will be very happy to know that Sword Emperor Xing Hui is coming. Since the giant dragon city master was not in the mountain peak, Xing Hui did not waste any time. He nodded and left. However, just as he was about to leave the Grand Development Gate and head to the war zone, Gu Xuanzuan and Silvermoon Empress, who had received news that he had come out of seclusion, came over. When they saw Xing Hui, they cupped their hands and said, Sword Emperor Xing Hui, Your Majesty must have made great progress in your cultivation after coming out of seclusion. Congratulations. Gu Xuanzuan and Silvermoon Empress said with a smile. When he saw an acquaintance, Xing Hui paused for a moment. Although it was very urgent to go to the war zone to find the giant dragon city master and get clues about the fortune jade fragment from him, he had already waited for several thousand years, so there was no need to rush. Gu Xuanzuan, Silvermoon Empress. Sword Emperor Xing Hui has been in seclusion for a while, so you haven't visited your Primordial Empire yet, right? The White Empire, which is near you, made a deal with you more than 5,000 years ago, exchanging the territory of the White Empire for the sphere of influence of the eight-armed dragon god. The power of the Hunyuan Empire, which obtained this territory, soared. Now, it has become one of the largest empires in our entire territory. Countless people are scrambling to get an official position in the Hunyuan Empire, and there are even some great divine masters among them. According to the development trend of your empire, it won't be long before it becomes the largest empire in the territory. Silvermoon Empress said with a smile. The expert behind the White Empire was the Great Development Gate's elder Emperor Bai. He faintly guessed that Emperor Bai's actions were a gesture of goodwill. After all, he was able to use the power of the divine tool of creation, which gave him an innate advantage over ordinary Great Development Gate cultivators. In addition, he had obtained several fragments of divine law. Once he refined these fragments of divine law, which was equivalent to the cultivation of a supreme expert, his battle prowess would increase dramatically. He would truly step into the ranks of supreme experts, and might even surpass ordinary supreme experts. Under such circumstances, it was completely reasonable for White Emperor to use an empire's territory to express his goodwill and establish good karma in advance. Thinking of this, he felt a little strange. Emperor Bai, who was an elder of the Great Development Gate, had to express goodwill towards him in small matters. But soon, he threw these strange thoughts to the back of his mind. So what if Emperor Bai was an elder of the Great Development Gate? His original body had already become a creature of chaos. If he was given tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, he could nurture hundreds or thousands of cultivators at the level of immortals. It would only take a short time to nurture an expert at the level of Emperor Bai. Now, he had already surpassed the level of great divine ability experts like Emperor Bai, and had risen to the level of the evil god, the master of chaos, the master of time, and the master of gods. Don't forget, his original body was currently engaged in a great battle with the master of chaos, even though he was only being attacked by the master of chaos and had to hide everywhere, but that was also a type of battle, wasn't it? I have to find a chance to express my gratitude to Emperor Bai. Although Tsing Hui's thoughts were drifting, he still maintained a smile on his face. Green Ruin's Sword Emperor, the Master of Chaos has summoned us to conquer a trapped chaos verse. We've come to the Grand Development Gate in a hurry to discuss what we should do. There are already over 20 cultivators who plan on participating in this meeting, and all of them are deacons at the 4-vein level or above. May I ask if you're interested, Green Ruin's Sword Emperor? If Sword Emperor Tsing Hui is willing to go, we are willing to recommend Sword Emperor Tsing Hui to be our leader and follow your orders. The Silvermoon Empress invited. I have some matters to discuss with the city master of Giant Dragon City, so I'm afraid I won't be able to participate for now. The Silvermoon Empress couldn't help but feel pity. That's quite a pity. Otherwise, with the Green Ruin's Sword Emperor's protection, our safety in this battle would be guaranteed, and our rewards would be much greater. Regarding this war, I can give you a suggestion. If you want to go to that chaos verse for extra income, then I don't recommend you to go. The harvest from that chaos verse may be much less than you think. But if you want to go there for contribution points and kill the top experts of that chaos verse to exchange for all kinds of resources, then you can go there because the top experts of that chaos verse are generally much weaker than our side. Tsing Hui did not explain further. He smiled and walked towards the entrance of the Great Development Gate. Gu Xuanzuan and the Silvermoon Empress looked at each other when they heard Tsing Hui's words. They wanted to ask for more details, but seeing that Tsing Hui had left and did not seem to want to reveal more, they did not ask. Silvermoon Empress, you see. The Silvermoon Empress pondered for a moment, then said, although I don't know where Sword Emperor Tsing Hui obtained this information, I believe that Sword Emperor Tsing Hui has no reason to deceive us about this matter. I already have a fortune artifact, and I only want to go to that chaotic universe to obtain some precious resources. Since there aren't many resources there, I won't go. I have a friend who wants to obtain some merit points to exchange for some treasures, but I don't know what kind of dangers lie in that chaotic universe. Since Sword Emperor Tsing Hui said that the experts of that chaotic universe may not be as strong as us, then I can go with him and give it a try. Gu Xuanzuan said. The two of them had already made their decision. Tsing Hui, who had already left, could vaguely hear their conversation. He couldn't help but feel a little speechless. He had already become an authoritative figure, and even these almighty existences could be influenced by his words. Chapter 969. Tsing Hui's current status was far from what it had been in the past. As he stepped into the battle zone, before he had the time to look for the Giant Dragon City Master, the Giant Dragon City Master had already sent someone to welcome him. All the teleportation formations along the way had been cleared and they were running properly. As soon as he arrived, the teleportation formations would be activated in less than a minute and send him to his destination. Under such circumstances, Tsing Hui met the Giant Dragon City Master very quickly. Sword Emperor Tsing Hui, long time no see. How have you been? In the reception hall, the Giant Dragon City Master smiled faintly. Tsing Hui sized up the Giant Dragon City Master and said politely, after a few thousand years, the City Master has already smelted the 8th Great Doctrine Order. Congratulations. It seems that it won't be long before the City Master's ranking on the Supreme Divine list moves up again. I'm just lucky. In terms of growth speed, Sword Emperor Tsing Hui is definitely above us. Moreover, Sword Emperor Tsing Hui has the advantage of having a creation divine weapon. When you have smelted the 7th Great Doctrine Order, I'm afraid the few of us will be left in the dust in terms of fighting power. The Giant Dragon City Master said. Tsing Hui replied modestly. What he had shown to the public was that he had smelted the 6th Great Doctrine Order. Such a standard was the most suitable for his current situation. Although he had only used a few thousand years to go from refining 3 types of laws to refining 6 types of laws, which could be said to be a stunning talent, it was not so fast that it was unacceptable. Sword Emperor Tsing Hui, have you made up your mind to make a deal with me? Tsing Hui knew what the Giant Dragon City Master meant by a deal. He could only say regretfully, I have already told you that my secret skill is not something an ordinary person can cultivate. If they can't cultivate the secret skill, they won't be able to unleash the full power of a creation divine weapon. Is that so? The enthusiasm on the Giant Dragon City Master's face dissipated slightly. If so, Sword Emperor Tsing Hui's visit this time. Although I can't use a secret technique to trade with you, I have a lot of other things in my hands. For example, fortune divine weapons and nomological fragments. The Giant Dragon City Lord shook his head. Sword Monarch Tsing Hui, you should know that it doesn't matter if it's a destinable artifact or a nomological fragment, it's nothing to me. Sword Monarch might not know this, but I obtained 6 nomological fragments last time. How can these nomological fragments be compared to the supreme treasure of the immortal Tao civilization? Qing Su smiled. He did not mind the City Lord's rejection at all. The City Lord only has clues to the supreme treasure of the immortal Tao civilization. It's not like you've already obtained it. It has already been several thousand years since the City Lord obtained the clues to the supreme treasure, yet the City Lord still hasn't obtained it. It's clear that the supreme treasure must be in the hands of some impressive figure. As a matter of fact, that figure is so powerful that even you, the City Lord of the Giant Dragon City, would not dare to act recklessly. Am I right? So what if I am? The Giant Dragon City Master said indifferently. I don't think I need to say which is more important between a supreme treasure that can't be obtained and the benefits that are right in front of you. As Tsing Hui spoke, he saw that the Giant Dragon City Master was about to speak again. He quickly said, calm down, City Master. Don't you want to hear my offer? You said it just now. It's just the fortune divine jade and nomological fragments. These things are extremely precious to cultivators who have just entered the stage of great mediums. However, to experts like us, they aren't of much use. 1 or 2 nomological fragments aren't useful, but what about 10, a dozen, or even dozens of them? 10, a dozen, dozens of them? The Giant Dragon City Master was stunned. Then, he became serious. Sword Monarch Tsing Hui, you mean? Tsing Hui stretched out 3 fingers, 30 pieces. I'll give you 30 law fragments in exchange for the clues about the fortune divine jade in your hands. 30 nomological fragments. The Giant Dragon City Master was shocked. where did you get so many nomological fragments? You don't have to worry about where I got my nomological fragments from. You just need to tell me if you want to make the deal. Xing Hui said. In fact, the nomological fragments in his hand originated from the Burning Blood God. It should be known that the Burning Blood God had infiltrated the Master of Chaos universe with his real body and killed several mythical beast primogenitors. A mythical beast primogenitor would have hundreds and thousands of nomological fragments. It was not an exaggeration to say that several mythical beast primogenitors had thousands of nomological fragments. Qing Su had been plotted against by the Burning Blood Lord. Although he had been teleported to the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse, he had still obtained over 100 fragments of laws before heading to the Burning Blood Lord's Chaos Verse. Let alone 30 fragments, even 30 fragments would be a piece of cake for him. 30 nomological fragments, that's a big deal. Sword Monarch Xing Hui has really obtained an amazing inheritance. The giant dragon city master took a deep breath. In his life, the number of nomological fragments that he had used was probably less than 30. However, I admit that I'm very tempted. If I use the 30 nomological fragments, I can even complete the 9th or 10th Great Tao and become a powerful existence on par with Black Supremacy and White Supremacy. The giant dragon city master sighed regretfully. The mayor of Giant Dragon City sighed regretfully. However, the value of this treasure from the immortal Tao civilization is just too shocking. I'm really unwilling to let it slip by me. Moreover, even if I give this information to the Master of Chaos, the reward I'll receive won't be much less than 30 nomological laws fragments. I'll even be able to get acquainted with the Master of Chaos. Hence, this price isn't enough to tempt me. Xing Hui shook his head. It seemed like the giant dragon city master's appetite was not as simple as 30 nomological fragments. City master, don't be so full of yourself. I think that if you can really get more than 30 nomological fragments by giving this information to the Master of Chaos, you would have told the Master of Chaos long ago when your cultivation level hasn't improved for a long time. There's only one explanation for why the Master of Chaos still hasn't found out about this. It's because the Master of Chaos has to put in a lot of effort to obtain this treasure. Based on this, the supreme treasure must be in the territory of the Master of Gods and the Master of Time. Since you've been in charge of fighting the Master of Time most of the time, even if there's a source of information, it must be from the Master of Time. In other words, the supreme treasure must be in the territory of the Master of Time. Thinking of this, Xing Hui's eyes sparkled. If you're not confident of obtaining it, that area must be in the sights of the Master of Time. Only a level 20 civilization or even a level 21 civilization can attract the attention of the Master of Time. The range has been narrowed down again. Let's calculate the battle zone you're in, Xing Hui slowly explained his deduction. In the beginning, the giant dragon city master was still able to remain indifferent. However, when Xing Hui deduced the battle zone he was in step by step and pointed out 6 level 20 civilizations and 1 level 21 civilization, the giant dragon city master's expression finally changed. The supreme treasure of the immortal Tao civilization must be in one of these 7 civilizations. Moreover, it's most likely in the level 21 civilization. As Xing Hui speculated, his gaze stopped on the giant dragon city master as if he wanted to deduce the true location of the creation sacred jade from any slight reaction of the giant dragon city master. However, the giant dragon city master shook his head. Sword Emperor Xing Hui, you don't have to deceive me. It's impossible for you to see anything wrong with me. Moreover, even if you reduce the number of suspicious targets to only 7, what can you do? Can you still search through these 7 civilizations one by one? Moreover, even if you really manage to find it, I can just send the news to the Master of Chaos. Even though the treasure is in the territory of the Master of Time, and the Master of Chaos has to go against the Master of Time in order to obtain the treasure, do you think the Great Master of Chaos will be afraid? The Great Master of Chaos is not afraid of the Master of Time and the Master of Gods fighting together, let alone a mere Master of Time. In the end, I'll still gain a lot. When Xing Hui heard this, his gaze gradually turned cold. Although his body's combat power was not weak, it would not be easy to kill the giant dragon city's governor because he did not bring the Scarlet Abyss sword with him, let alone interrogate him. He would need to capture him alive. He didn't even have enough strength to capture the giant dragon city's mayor alive. He had to capture him alive in an instant without giving him any time to react. Otherwise, the giant dragon city's mayor would be able to communicate with the Master of Chaos and report the news about the Fortune Jade to him. In order to do this, unless Tsing Hui's original body came personally, he would not be able to do it even if he had cultivated to 12 vein level. For a moment, Tsing Hui could only put away the coldness in his heart and said in a low voice, "Then, Giant Dragon City Master, tell me your conditions." 50 precept fragments. The Giant Dragon City Master said without hesitation. "That's too much. I still need to keep some precept fragments for my own use. If I really give you all these precept fragments, I don't know how long it will take for me to step into the 7 vein and 8 vein level." The Giant Dragon City Master was secretly shocked. He did not expect Tsing Hui to actually have 50 precept fragments. For a moment, he could not help but clench his teeth and not relent easily. Then, the two of them haggled for half a day. Finally, Tsing Hui completed the transaction with 46 precept fragments. "I have to say that this is really a profitable transaction. You used a piece of information that you can't use to exchange for 46 precept fragments. This kind of transaction is rare in the world. The main thing is that the treasure is too precious. If Sword Emperor Tsing Hui could really get his hands on the treasure, forget 46 precept fragments, even if it were 56 or 66 precept fragments, there would definitely be people fighting to exchange with you." The Giant Dragon City Master laughed. "That will have to wait until I get my hands on the treasure first," Tsing Hui said. The two of them had already signed a contract beforehand. Although the contract was not very secure, it was better than nothing. As Tsing Hui handed the 46 precept fragments to the Giant Dragon City Master, the Giant Dragon City Master passed a star map to him straightforwardly. "Sword Emperor Tsing Hui, if the information that I received is correct, the treasure should be in this civilization." Tsing Hui nodded and glanced at the star map. However, he soon noticed an abnormality. This civilization, he knew. It was the special civilization that Tsing Hui had chased after Yin Yu and the group of people when he had just returned to the battlefield after killing real god Ikisi. It was a civilization that had developed to rank 20 in just a few thousand years. Chapter 970. The Oracle Civilization. Tsing Hui was stunned. It was the Oracle Civilization. When Tsing Hui had gone to the war zone for the first time, he had heard Yin Yu and the others talk about the abnormalities of this civilization. After all, it had only taken a few thousand years for a civilization to evolve from rank 17 to rank 20. It was unbelievable. It was like a maverick cultivator becoming a dominator in a few thousand years. It was strange no matter how one looked at it. However, at that time, Tsing Hui's cultivation was still weak and could not deal with a rank 20 civilization. He could only keep this doubt in his heart for the time being, hoping to study it when he had time in the future. However, he did not expect, according to the information from the Giant Dragon City's mayor, the creation divine jade was most likely in this civilization. This civilization is only a rank 20 civilization. Although a rank 20 civilization has the power to kill a dominator if they gather their forces, it is nothing to us great divine powers. However, this civilization's computing power is extremely powerful. They have set up countless detectors in the starry sky where they are, more than a rank 21 civilization. In addition, this civilization is too close to the war zone's command center, and the one in charge of commanding that war zone is a rank 21 civilization. The Giant Dragon City's mayor explained. A rank 21 civilization. Any rank 21 civilization had the power to surround and kill a great divine power of the same level. This was talking about surrounding and killing, not defeating. In other words, the comprehensive combat power of every rank 21 civilization was equivalent to a godly venerable. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to gather their fleet to have such an effect. Compared to the Master of Gods, the Time King valued the civilizations under his command more. If a godly venerable in the Master of Gods' territory was in mortal danger, the Master of Gods might send a clone to help his subordinates out. The Time King valued his subordinates even more. If the giant dragon city's mayor really went to the Oracle civilization, it would be fine if he was not discovered. However, once he was discovered, the nearby rank 21 civilization, the Titan civilization, would immediately know. Once the Titan civilization joined the war, it would definitely attract the Time King's attention. Once the Lord of Time cast his gaze over and noticed the creation heavenly jade, at the level of the giant dragon city's mayor, he would definitely die. Of course. There was also a certain probability that the Lord of Time was distracted by other things and had no time to pay attention to the changes in his territory. However, this probability was like a person being aimed at by a gun and not being able to shoot accurately. It required a lot of courage. Chapter 971. In the Palace of the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures. At this moment, only Tsing Hui, the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures, and the Heavenly Lord of Vast Seas, 3 immortal emperor-level figures who were proficient in array formations, remained. Upon hearing Tsing Hui's words, the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures could not help but speak up to stop him. Saint, there's absolutely no need for us to take such a risk. Since the god civilization might be a trap left behind by the Time King, why should we step into it? You must know that the Time King is a great existence who is most adept at scheming. If we rashly step into his trap, we'll fall into it completely if we're not careful. When that happens, the flame that our immortal civilization has ignited with great difficulty will be extinguished once again. That's why I need the Heavenly Lord of Vast Seas and all of you to help me set up a teleportation array that can teleport me out the moment I step into the trap. It doesn't even matter if I'm teleported out. The key is the Creation Divine Jade Fragment. As long as I can obtain the Creation Divine Jade Fragment, I'll be able to completely repair the immortal civilization and resonate with the broken immortal civilization. When that happens, I'll become a peak existence second only to the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Time King. Even if I have to face these 3 overlords again, it won't be difficult for me to at least protect my own life. Tsing Hui said. But if the Time King really placed the Creation Divine Jade Fragment in the God civilization just to attract other cultivators who have the Creation Divine Jade, then he'll definitely leave a backup plan in the Creation Divine Jade Fragment. When that happens, so what if he leaves a backup plan? No matter how the Time King plans, he can't possibly predict that I've already broken through to the 4th level of the Chaos Realm and transformed into a true chaotic life form. When I send the Creation Divine Jade to the chaotic universe where my main body is, I'll completely perfect the immortal civilization and resonate with it to break through to the 5th level of the Chaos Realm. Even if the Time King knows that the Creation Divine Jade is with me, he won't be able to do anything to me. But you'll inevitably be exposed at that time. If that happens, you might be hunted down by the Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, the Time King, and even all the life forms that roam the periphery of this chaotic void. I have considered this problem. Tsing Hui had a faint smile on his face. Heavenly Monarch, there might be one detail that you're not clear about. I broke through as a chaos life form and stepped into the 4th level of the chaos realm as a chaos life form, not a creation life form. I know. The Lord of Plentiful Treasures said, chaos beings usually have extremely powerful recovery abilities and enormous bodies. If they choose to split themselves infinitely, the chaos being won't be able to kill the chaos being if the creation being of the same level doesn't have a strong enough foundation. But the problem is, if you're really exposed, you'll be attacked by not only the creation being of the 5th level, but also the Time Lord and the Master of Gods, who are equivalent to the 6th level. These 2 mighty existences have unimaginably rich foundations, and they have innumerable imperishable substances on them. If they all come at you at once, even if you choose to split yourself infinitely, you'll still be completely destroyed by them. No, the reason I specifically mentioned that I am a chaos life form is not because I have the powerful splitting characteristics of a chaos life form, but because of the immortal Tao civilization. The immortal Tao civilization? That's right. I don't know what kind of life form the Great Plate of Primogeniture and Plate of Eternity were back then. Chaos life forms or creation life forms, but the immortal Tao civilization he created walked the path of a creation universe created by a creation life form. Therefore, if I can successfully resonate with the immortal Tao civilization and evolve to the 5th level, then it's very likely that I'll eventually become a wondrous life form with both creation and chaos characteristics in one body. A wondrous life form with both creation and chaos characteristics in one body. Tsing Hui's words stunned both the heavenly monarch of plentiful treasures and the heavenly monarch of vast seas. That's right. I'll have the powerful body of a chaos life form and the ability to split infinitely. At the same time, I'll have the swift teleportation speed of a creation life form. The heavenly monarch of plentiful treasures, the heavenly monarch of vast seas, and the other apex existences exchanged glances, feeling incredulous. But it was undeniable that Tsing Hui's words did make some sense. Logically speaking, the Great Plate of Founding Ancestors and Plate of Eternity should have belonged to a being of chaos, yet he just happened to establish a world of immortal civilization that could only be established by a being of creation. In other words, if Qing Su could obtain the complete creation jade and restart the world of immortals, it was understandable that he would refine the damaged world that belonged to a being of creation into his own chaotic universe. After all, he was actually walking the path of the Great Plate of Primogeniture. He was merely retracing the path that the Great Plate of Primogeniture had taken, and it was the least likely path that would lead to problems. In fact, they all suspected that the Great Plate of Primogeniture and Plate of Eternity might have been a unique life form that possessed both creation and chaos characteristics before reaching ultimate eternity. Otherwise, how could he have slain 3,000 chaos demon gods and established his supreme position? Don't worry, everyone. I'm a chaos life form at the end of the day, an existence equivalent to an evil god. I won't die that easily. Tsing Hui smiled faintly. When the Heavenly Lord of Myriad Treasures and the Heavenly Lord of Vast Sea heard Qing Su's words, they could only agree in the end, let's do as you say, Saint. However, your current Chaos verse has already left the Lord of Chaos territory, and you're being hunted down by the Lord of Chaos as well. It won't be easy for us to set up a teleportation formation. We'll need your cooperation and all sorts of information and data. Of course. Although the Lord of Burning Blood has been devoured by the Lord of Chaos, he's still a 5th-level Chaos life form. If he struggles and resists with all his might, he'll still cause quite a bit of trouble for the Lord of Chaos. His ability to split infinitely will give the Lord of Chaos a headache, so he shouldn't die anytime soon. Perhaps we can use a teleportation formation to pass through his chaos universe and mislead the Lord of Time, Master of Gods, and the others into thinking that the Fortune Jade was taken away by the Lord of Burning Blood's people. This way, we can at least buy some time before he dies. When Lord of Vast Sea heard Tsing Hui's words, he couldn't help but wipe away the non-existent sweat on his forehead. The Lord of Burning Blood was a peak 5th-level Chaos Realm existence, but Tsing Hui had used him to the extreme. He'd sent someone straight to the mouth of the Lord of Chaos, yet he still wasn't willing to let him go. At this time, he still wanted to trap the Lord of Burning Blood. However, come to think of it, this wasn't a bad idea. Moreover, the Master of Burning Blood had already been devoured by the Master of Primal Chaos. If the Master of Time wanted to take the Fortune Jade from the Master of Burning Blood, he might even come into conflict with the Master of Primal Chaos. Once a conflict broke out between these two mighty existences, wouldn't they be able to manipulate even more space? The Saint's words are worth a try. Alright, Vast Sea. You know more about Lord Searing Blood's Chaos verse than I do, so I'll leave the task of entering his Chaos verse to you. Back then, I had the experience of controlling Lord Searing Blood's Chaos verse. Although he has regained control of his Chaos verse after his return, I still left a backdoor in the universe will. You can use it as a transfer point. When the time comes, we'll be teleported to my Chaos Verse together with several other immortal emperors proficient in formations. Vast Sea and the other immortal emperors nodded in unison. Lord of Myriad Treasures, I need you to head to the Chaos Void to receive my message and assist Vast Sea in setting up a teleportation formation. I'll find a way to exchange for a tool on the battlefield that will allow you to stay in the Chaos Void for a long time. As you command, Saint. Lord of Myriad Treasures nodded. Xing Hui was about to start the operation after he finished delegating the task. However, he suddenly thought of something and asked, I remember that you've personally studied the Qingping Sword Spirit's information that was suspected to have come from the long river of time and space? Yes, we do have such a department. Alright, I have 2 items here for you to study. It's best if you can figure them out before we complete our arrangements. Xing Hui took out the crystal ball and the magic lamp that he had obtained from the Lord of Burning Blood's Chaos Universe. He also explained the functions of the crystal ball to them one by one. Lord of Myriad Treasures took the 2 treasures. His expression was full of surprise when he saw the crystal ball-like treasure. Don't worry, Saint. Since you've used a secret technique to analyze the images in this crystal ball, it's clear that our research direction is correct. We should be able to obtain preliminary information soon. Xing Hui nodded. These 2 treasures should have been left behind by Eternity Ultimate. The reason why the Lord of Burning Blood had attacked the Lord of Scarlet Hell, who was also a chaos life form, was probably because of these 2 treasures. Otherwise, even if they had the advantage of a realm, a chaos life form wouldn't easily start a war with another chaos life form. After all, the ability of a chaos life form to divide infinitely was too troublesome. Since the Lord of Burning Blood had taken the risk to snatch these 2 treasures, it was clear that they were very useful. If he could understand the mysteries of these 2 treasures, with the help of the crystal ball's ability to see through time and space, his following operations would be much smoother. This operation can be said to be of utmost importance. If the plan succeeds, we will no longer be lambs to the slaughter in front of the lords of chaos, time, and gods. We will truly have the right to be independent. It can be said that this is a battle that will determine our future and even the future of the immortal Tao civilization. Therefore, I ask that you all work together with me. In the end, Qing Su concluded. Lord of Myriad Treasures, Lord of Vast Seas, and the others nodded solemnly. We understand. Even if we have to risk our lives, we will set up the teleportation array properly. Lord of Vast Seas said solemnly. Then, get ready to move. The most critical moment has arrived. Xing Hui stood up. Immediately, everyone took their positions and left to make preparations. Xing Hui also left the Lord of Myriad Treasures' palace. He planned to guide his main body and cooperate with Lord of Vast Seas to set up the teleportation array. However, just as he left the Lord of Myriad Treasures' palace, a figure appeared in front of Xing Hui. It was the transforming void immortal lord who had been in charge of the arrangements for the people in the source world. When he saw Xing Hui, the transforming void immortal lord stepped forward with a look of surprise and couldn't wait to report the good news that he had discovered thousands of years ago. Lord Xing Hui, I've found the person you asked me to look for back then. I've finally found him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.